Brewers going to make it 1-0. Victor cuts the bag at second. He'll go to third. Cardinals have back-to-back 2-out hits and a 1-0 lead. They're going to walk J.J., it appears. Wow, how about that? An intentional walk for Weatherholt with Ivan Herrera coming up. Swing and a drive. Rocketed toward the gap. That's going to get down off the base of the wall. Here comes J.J. flying around third. He will score standing up. And Herrera clears him with a double.
People say it's personal. It's not personal, but like I want to have success in that situation because they just walk somebody just to pitch me. Maybe I'm the liability on the team, you know. So that was for me. I was kind of like the thought I have. Say, hey, you want this? I got you.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, love that mindset from Ivan Herrera post-game yesterday. That situation was interesting to me, Alex. Audio courtesy of Cardinals TV. Bottom of the fourth inning. Cardinals are up 1-0. 2 on, 1 out, righty on the mound. Brewers intentionally walk Weatherholt. And now suddenly you are pitching to Ivan Herrera with a righty on the mound. Now, I think this tells you a lot about where the Cardinals are at right now. One, there's no good answer there. Two, they were so afraid of J.J. Weatherholt left on right that they decided, you know what, we'd rather pitch to one of the guys with the highest on-base percentage in Major League Baseball, one of the best batter's eye in Major League Baseball so far this year, a guy who has not yet hit his stride offensively when it comes to his slug, but seems like he may be starting to get there right now in Ivan Herrera. And Ivan Herrera did the Michael Jordan meme of, I took that personally. I know he said he didn't. He did. He did. And you could feel it as he was walking up to the plate. You knew something positive was going to happen. That moment was so symbolic of what has felt different about the Cardinals this year, what their offense looks like compared to recent years past, where you now have legitimate threats batting leadoff, batting second, batting third, and batting fourth on a night in, night out basis. That, to me, is what feels different about this Cardinals team. And you just saw a manager acknowledge with his actions how much different this Cardinals team is. What'd you think about with the win last night? How you feeling this morning, Alex?
Feeling good. I mean, I remember 2 years ago after that Blue Jays series when I believe it was Kevin Gossman. It was the first game, and he was like, God, this lineup's tough to deal with. And we got super excited. Like, we were like, all right,
90 games.
They finally got it. Yeah, and then they lost. So, like, when you're talking about the fear, it's like, I feel like we've had this before, but it wasn't sustainable. And I don't know how believable that was. Like, we got excited, but you were relying on Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt and Wilson Contreras. Now you're relying on these young guys that has that mentality like Ivan Herrera. And, like, I always have felt like Oli Marmol has that piss and vinegar in his game and his mentality, and now you're seeing it start to leak off on the players. Like Ivan Herrera is like, yeah, I took that personally. Mason Wynn, you saw a couple games ago, he was pissed when that ball wasn't considered a home run. He was hitting that second base, and he was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
I think it was against the Dodgers. So, like, that's the energy that they bring to the baseball field. So that's where it gets you excited because, yeah, like you have that fear, but this isn't fear of 31 and 32-year-olds that you're like, yeah, you got to strike right now, though. This is fear of Walker and Weatherholt and Herrera, all guys that you're building around that are just getting this confidence now that 2-3 years from now, oh, my gosh, they could be a dangerous ball club with those guys.
Okay, we were going to talk about this later on. Let's just open with it.
Well,
Jesus. I mean, you just went into it a little bit, so let's go ahead and do it. I think it's the biggest conversation about the Cardinals right now. And, like, everybody's going to have a different response to it, but I think it's a legitimately intriguing question. The Cardinals aren't that much different record-wise this year than they were last year. You got to the end of May last year, they were like 8 games above 500. You're 7 games above 500 right now. Maybe that continues. Maybe they drop back a little bit, and they're roughly in this range by the end of the month. We'll see. Why does it feel so much different? Because I don't know if you guys sense this as well, but I certainly do. I mean, T-Bone, our latest edition of the Redbird Report is now the most listened to podcast that we've ever had on YouTube. Not for the Redbird Report, for 101 ESPN. It's It's got more than 9,000 views. Anything you put out on social media right now that has anything related to Cardinals, whether it's videos or tweets, whatever it is, man, it's spreading like wildfire. Cardinals fans are in on this team. They are consuming the content. Later on today, we're going to hear from a bunch of different national voices that have been talking about the Cardinals over the last 24 hours because they are a national storyline. I felt myself getting mad earlier today because I read on MLB.com, and Alex, I felt like you, because this is what you do with the Blues, and I felt it that way with the Cardinals.
Yeah, welcome aboard.
Where I'm like protective of the guys now. They had a list of the top National League MVP candidates so far this year. You know who wasn't listed?
Walker.
Jordan Walker. How the hell can you have a list of the best MVP candidates in the National League right now and not include that guy? It's crazy. It's absolute crazy talk. So anyways, why does it feel different? Because it does feel that way, despite the record being similar. And overall, like, there are legitimate questions with the pitching right now. And outside of the top 5 in the lineup, yeah, you're top 4, really. You're getting some productive guys at the bottom of the order, but it's not as though it's overwhelming. So in your opinion, why does it feel different this time around?
I think it's 2 reasons, and they're simple. One, Jordan Walker. This fan base has been desperate for a superstar, and it feels like they finally have found one. And the second one is the plan that they laid in place. There's nobody telling you in front of a microphone that this team can be a playoff contender and that they believe they can go win the World Series if they get in and anything can happen. They told you at the beginning of the season, like, yeah, this is a little bit of a build and we're going to start from the bottom and build our way up and we'll be better than expected. But, you know, we're not expecting much right now. Like, I think the expectations were set so low that Cardinals fans were expecting a 100-loss season. And instead, they're getting an emerging superstar, possibly another superstar in J.J. Weatherholt, on top of a team that is fighting for the top place in the NL Central. So to me, that's why it feels different. The expectations were set so low, and I don't have somebody trying to just tell me for 4 years straight that, or we could be a playoff team. We could be a playoff team. No, you can. This one actually can, and nobody thought that they could.
Is it I'm truly asking. I'm curious where you guys are coming from with this. Does it feel more different for now, or does it feel more different for what this all means for the future?
Oh, see, I think it feels different now. I don't know what it means for the future because I don't know what your pitching looks like.
And the reason I'm asking that is because, like, if we're excited because of the young players, I think that's totally fair. Like, that's what's getting me excited. The outlook for J.J. Weatherholt and Jordan Walker in particular, that feels like you have potentially 2 stars. And they're young and they're cost controlled, they're homegrown. Like, that is something different than what you've had in the past. The reason that I do find it a little strange in terms of it feeling different for right now is because you've had quote unquote stars in recent past. Not last year. Last year, the guys just didn't perform. But previously, whether it was Contreras or Arenado or Goldie or O'Neill, like, you've had stars that have performed at a really high level at times in the past. But it does feel like the energy around Walker and Weatherholt is different than it was around those guys. And so it's just something I'm curious about. Why do you think that is the case?
I would say it's more for the future than it is for the now.
Okay.
Because I think when you're thinking about the now, yes, it is fun, it is exciting, and it is, you know, Weatherholt's living up to expectations. Walker's finally getting to the expectations people had for him. But I think if you ask most Cardinals fans, they would say probably the same thing. Yeah, this is fun. I'm kind of getting interested, and they're kind of piquing my interest. But I don't know that they're a playoff team because they don't have pitching. The reason I say it's probably more for the future is because people see this as, when we would talk about, hey, they're going into a rebuild, we were always talking about, like, hey, what happens if you don't get answers on Walker? Like, all of a sudden you were going, okay, well, now we need 2 big bats in the middle of our order for the future of this build. And I think Cardinals fans are seeing this going, or at least wondering, you know, could this be, maybe this accelerates the timeline a little bit, right? Now you've got most of the answers you wanted on your offense. Now it's just a matter of, we've got to figure out our pitching. But it kind of reminds me of like what Baltimore was, where Baltimore ended up having, all of a sudden it was, hey, we like some of the pieces we have, and then boom, snap of the finger, they were there, right? Rutschman gets to the scene. You had the Henderson comes to the scene as well. And it was like, wow, okay, we've got these two big bats that are these young cost control guys, and they never really had the pitching that followed up behind it. I think they're kind of in that spot to where they might be ahead of what the front office was expecting this year. They'll be a little bit better than people thought. And then the hope is, okay, we take that a step further and the pitching starts to catch up with it. And then now you're really talking about this build being a success.
See, that's why I'm kind of looking at it more as the excitement for now, because it feels a little like what the Blues did last year, where we got excited because of all of those younger pieces, and we like, oh, okay, cool, now you're taking the step forward, and then we all saw what happened. Like, I just don't know about the future yet, because you still have to develop the pitching. You still have to see Jordan Walker do this for another season, a second full year of J.J. Weatherholt. The excitement is now, because you haven't been able to taste playoffs for a long time with a team that, like, you tangibly can look at and you be like, man, there's something exciting with this. That feels different now, and maybe it's just because of this offense, because I agree with Tanner. The pitching is where you look at it and you're like, yeah, but the shoe could drop on the other side. I feel like the excitement is now because you're getting all of these returns on guys that I think people were ready to ship out for nothing.
It just feels fresh. Like, I'll just give my perspective on it. It feels fresh. And so much of the Cardinals' experience in recent seasons felt stale. That's from the top all the way down. You had heard John Mozeliak giving you the updates for 15 years, and it was just kind of stale. You knew what he was going to say. You didn't like what he was going to say. And I'm talking for, like, fans. I didn't feel this way, but fans felt this way. I think that's the sense that I got, at least. And you're just kind of done with it. You wanted to turn the page, get to something new. And you saw old guys in the rotation. Like, you saw Eric Fetty and Miles Michaelis, who you knew were going to go out there and get their teeth kicked in every time, and it wasn't fun to watch. And you knew there's no future here, there's no hope here, there's no unlocking this. This is just what it's going to be every time they go out on the mound. With Kyle Leahy, he has a near 5 ERA on the season, which is not all that dissimilar from what you saw from Michaelis or from Fetty last year. But the experience of watching him feels different. And that you do feel like there is some potential untapped room for growth there. I would say the same thing is true in some ways for, like, an Andre Palante, who's been a little better this year than I think people were expecting him to be. So it feels as though there's still untapped potential with the rotation, whereas last year, 2 out of every 5 days, you just felt like you had no chance because of who was on the mound, and that guy had no future with your team. Now it feels as though the guys have a future with the team. So it's fresh, it's new, it's exciting. I feel like every time I watch J.J. Weatherholt, I'm learning something new about him. I feel like Jordan Walker is just such a revelation, not just here in St. Louis, but nationally, where this is a guy that was left for dead after being legitimately one of the top prospects in all of Major League Baseball. And now he was one of the best performers in Major League Baseball. And in my opinion, it's way too early to do any of this stuff. But if you're going to have a way too early list of MVP candidates, he's got to be on it at this point in the regular season, which is incredible because this time last year, he would have been on a list of the least valuable players in Major League Baseball. That kind of a jump just is completely atypical of what happens in Major League Baseball. It's almost unprecedented to see a guy who was this bad become this good. It never happens. So with all of that, it's just so much fun to watch this team, man. I legitimately look forward to turning the Cardinals games on right now. And I look forward to J.J. Weatherholt coming up. I look forward to watching Ivan Herrera. I look forward to watching Alec Burleson. I'm excited about what Jordan Walker is going to do. I kind of enjoy watching this team play defense right now. And that's just like a secondary piece to all of it. So you add all of it up, it's so different in the feel around the team, even if the results are kind of similar. And I do think you guys are right. The expectations going in are a big part of that because nobody thought it was going to be like this. And even me, who was kind of optimistic relative to expectations, I was like, yeah, maybe if, like, everything goes right, you could get to 85 wins. And that's in the best case scenario. Hey, man, if everything goes right now, you're looking at 95 based upon their current
wow, clip it.
winning percentage. That's what they're on pace for. I'm still not there, but it opens up the potential of being more excited than you otherwise would have been. I also think it's that the Brewers aren't very good, man.
We say that every year, though.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Did you guys have any fear of that lineup yesterday?
Well, Ferrario had 2 hits in his first 2 at-bats.
They didn't have their biggest fear in the lineup.
This is true, yeah.
Where was their big bopper?
Well, he still ain't there.
Well, he might be soon.
Okay, we'll see.
He's warming up. They showed a video of him on the Brewers broadcast last night. He's coming. He's standing, eating sunflower seeds.
Oh, okay.
But he's getting close.
This Brewers team just doesn't have the pitching they have in the past.
No.
That's the thing to me. Like, they've never had a lineup that I'm overly fearful of, and that's why they've had no success once they get to the playoffs. They've basically been the Cardinals from 2016 to 2023, where they get there and then they get pounded by whoever the actual good teams are. But their pitching this year isn't as good as it's been in the past. They've got Mizorowski. He's really interesting. They've got Harrison, who apparently has become a good starter, but beyond that,
yeah,
it's pretty mediocre.
And there's just no big names outside those two, right? Like, when you think of Brewers in the past, like even I think 3 years ago, it was Burns, Woodruff, who's still there, but just like Woodruff typically is, he's injured. And then you had Freddie Peralta. So, like, you had big names in the rotation on top of some big names in the lineup with, like, Christian Yelich, way back when, Ryan Braun. But now I'm kind of with you. Like, it's the rotation for me. Like, that lineup, like, they got some interesting names. Like, Churrio's an interesting name. Contreras is interesting. Terang's been, like, one of the best players in baseball this season. His Baseball Savant page glows with red. But I'm with you. It's the rotation for those guys. And I don't know about you, but the moment that it really hit me wasn't even so much the starter in Patrick. It was, that's Jake Woodford coming out of their bullpen?
Well, I was going to say, like, is their bullpen good this year? Because, like, I feel like in years past, it's always been elite.
Yeah, that's the other thing. They don't have a closer that you're afraid of the way that you once were.
Yeah, with Hader, Devin Williams.
I mean, it's ninth in ERA, but God, it feels like the guys that they're rolling out there isn't like 3 or 4 guys that you're afraid of like years past has always been.
That's a really good point. It is a very different look to the bullpen than it has been in the past, where they don't have that, oh my God, that guy is entering the game.
It felt like the last 2 years they had 3 guys leading up to the closer that it was like, good luck getting through the 6th inning and scoring any runs.
No doubt. Yeah, you get through their starter, which is already hard enough, and then you get to the bullpen, it's like,
hope you're winning the game.
Game over. Yeah, game blouses against the Milwaukee Brewers. So Cardinals get a win last night. Back at it this evening. Maybe if this rain will hold off, we'll see
this
about that.
This is BK kind of weather. He's probably going to head down there in a T-shirt later on today.
Andre Palante on the mound. If you want to go, you can get tickets for pretty cheap going to tonight's game against the Brewers. In 15 minutes, we'll be joined by Jeremy Rutherford. Katie Woo, previously with the St. Louis Cardinals, insider for The Athletic, now covering the Dodgers. She was in town over the weekend. She's going to join us to give us her perspective on the Cardinals figuring this out right as she leaves. That's coming up at 12 o'clock.
Who leaves Cardinals win? What the?
Derrick Goold coming up at 1 o'clock. Want to hear from you. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Coming up next, how much value does a starter like Kiley have for the St. Louis Cardinals? Talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Pretty good start overall last night from Kyle Leahy. 5 1/3 innings, 6 hits, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts overall in the game. It was much like the last start, Alex. Looked really good through 5, and then suddenly you get into the 6th, and that's where his trouble begins. Through 5 innings over his last 4 starts. Here are the numbers for Kyle Leahy. This is excluding anything that happens after the 5th inning. 20 innings pitched, 23 hits, 7 earned runs, 19 strikeouts in those 20 innings, 4 walks. That's good for a 3.1 ERA. Again, through 5 innings over his last 4 starts. If you just went 5 and dive with Kyle Leahy, we'd be talking about his last 4 starts and be like, hey, man, he might have turned a corner here. Unfortunately for the Cardinals, he has pitched into the 6th, and that has not gone well whatsoever. But I do give them credit for doing so. The Cardinals' offense has put them in position to where he can go out there, feel what that's like, see that 3rd time through the order, and get his teeth kicked in so that way he learns how he can adjust. I'm being serious. Like, I know it sounds kind of like I'm joking. I think that's important for a starter to learn how to get through this because you're eventually going to be needed to go into that 6th, 7th, 8th inning, however long you can go. And it doesn't appear that the pitch count is a problem for him any longer. Now it's just about finding ways to get dudes out as you get deeper into the game, and they see you more times in that game. Alex, my question to you would be this. If Leahy just becomes a 5 and dive starter, and he's really effective through those 5 innings, he has like a 3.5, 4 ERA in those 5 innings, how much value does that hold for them, both for this year and also beyond?
I think it holds a ton of value for them this year, and that's it. I think beyond this year, I don't see how he fits into the plans for the Cardinals rotation, just because when you think of everything that they have in their system, now this all falls on also these guys developing quick enough to get there, but we've gone through this list ad nauseum, but when you think of Dobbins and Fitz and Matthews and Liam Doyle and Tanner Franklin and Senja, like they've got a lot of guys that are going to be rotation pitchers for this team, and that leaves a guy left. And you also have to consider Matthew Liberatore and Michael McGreevy into that conversation as well. So I think this season he is helping you get through a year to where you're just pitching depth. You've got it, but it's just not developed yet. And I think when you get to the point where all of that pitching is developed and ready to make it to the major leagues, I think Kyle Leahy either becomes a bullpen arm or he goes to the Steven Matz role to where you can make some spot starts. You be the 6th starter, but you're also a bullpen arm. I just don't see how his age and just his role with these other guys and the ceilings that they have, how it fits into the Cardinals' plans moving forward. But for now, boy, they need a Kyle Leahy to be this for them.
Yeah, I don't know how much he plays up for them in the future, even as a 5 and dive, because you can create a much easier lane for him coming out of the bullpen in the future if that's where you put him back. Think back to last year because he is so good against righties. I mean, righties on the year have a 717 OPS against him. That's pretty good, right? Like that's a number you can survive with. Lefties are still crushing him. They have an OPS over 1,000. So I think, the Brewers weren't really able to put a bunch of lefties in the lineup last night. Some teams will be able to, like we saw the Dodgers this week, and they were basically able to run a lineup all out there of lefties. Against Michael McGreevy. So because he is so splitty, and maybe he can change that, but for right now, since he appears to be so splitty, I think the future still is probably best served in the bullpen because what Alex was saying, like I was just kind of writing down what I think their hope is for their rotation moving forward. Hope is you've got Doyle, Senja kind of as 1-2 would be my guess. Matthews/Franklin is kind of hoping for like your 3/4, along with then McGreevy, who kind of slots in as the perfect 5, as we talked about yesterday, a guy that's going to go out there and give you 6 quality innings. And then it comes down to, okay, well, we've got other options like Fitz or potentially Matthew Liberatore or Palante, who's actually pitched better than Kyle Leahy so far this year. So I think for now, yeah, I agree with what Alex said. I think it is, hey, it's kind of necessary that we do this because we've only got 6 guys basically that can start for us in our organization at the major league level. But long term, even as a 5 and dive, I just think there's more value for him to come out of the bullpen.
That's where I'm at as well. And this is, I think I'm certain actually, they would push back against what I'm about to say, but I just don't think he has the same upside as some of these other starters that are coming through the system. I think those are guys that you're going to want to take over this role from Kyle Leahy long term. Now, contractually, that is something to take into mind. Like, I think Andre Palante is a better starter than Kyle Leahy, both now and in the long term. I also understand Andre Palante is going to get relatively expensive sooner rather than later for them, and that may be a scenario where for the money, it's actually better to have Kyle Leahy in that spot than it would be to have Andre Pallante, because he's already making, what, $5 million this year? Pallante is?
Yeah, I think that's right.
So next year he's going to be closer to maybe $8-9 million. If you could have that or Kyle Leahy at 2, well, given what their performances are, I'd rather have Kyle Leahy at 2 in that spot in my rotation, and maybe you either non-tender Andre Pallante or decide to trade him to somebody else that's willing to take on that $9 million, $8 million contract, whatever it may be. So maybe next year he's still a part of your rotation, and eventually as these guys continue to develop through your system, that's when you start to make the transition for him back to the bullpen. But for right now, I do think there's value in this. For where the Cardinals are at currently in their build, they need guys that can just go out there and give them innings. They would otherwise be at an innings deficit. So the fact that he's even this good right now as a starter is pretty impressive. And it holds real value to the 2026 Cardinals, in my opinion, more so than 27, 28, or 29. The Cardinals would disagree with that.
And you might need him in 27, too. Like, you just don't know development-wise what some of these guys are. You may need him for the first 4 months of next year just to be that rotation piece. And then once you get to July, August, September next year, that's when you start to see those guys churn through. But when you're talking like playoff contending Cardinals, I don't see what Leahy's role is other than a bullpen arm.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Ken Rosenthal was on Fair Territory, his podcast recently, and he talked a lot about the Cardinals. We'll hear a few more of his clips later on today, but he did make reference to the pitching and why that is the one thing that still has him skeptical of the 2026 Cardinals.
Now, do I expect the Cardinals to stay in it? Not really. And the reason for that is their pitching staff, which, while so far okay, they've done some good things. They've got a back of the bullpen that is at least formidable, and they've gotten good work out of their starters. But this is a team that is last in the majors in strikeout rate. They don't miss bats, and that's how the game is played today. So ultimately, do I believe that catches up with them? Yeah, I do. But at the same time, again, what they're doing and the way they're playing, they're an extremely talented defensive club, up in the top defensive metrics in both outs above average and defensive runs saved. So that compensates a little bit for the lack of swing and miss. What they're doing right now is far more than their fans expected, and it gives their fans hope now that, okay, we're going to be okay in the future.
Do you guys agree with him that the pitching is the thing that ultimately is probably going to doom them?
Yeah, I do. Everything he says, they sound like the Brewers minus the strikeout. Like, they got incredible defense. They got guys that can score runs. They got a good lineup for you, but their pitching doesn't strike you out. And that's where I do think it catches up to you. And I think the starting pitching is going to hurt or hinder you at some point, which is going to leak off into the bullpen. When one of those things breaks, the ship's going to sink.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the pitching. It's why as fun as they are, it's why I still don't believe they're going to be a playoff team, because I think it's both aspects of the pitching staff, right? I don't think the rotation's good enough. It doesn't miss enough bats. They don't get particularly deep into a ton of games. And then you add on top of that, if a game is tied or if they're down by a run or two, man, their middle relief is just not good enough. It's been better here over the last couple of games. Like, Stanek was good last night. Do any of us really trust Stanek when he comes out of the pen? The answer is no, right? And we don't trust Brohl when he comes out. Like, there's just too many of those guys to where games can get away from them. I do think it's all going to eventually lead to their pitching staff is going to fall apart, and that's going to be the reason they miss the playoffs.
They're currently last by a decent margin in strikeout rate. They're also last by a decent margin in swinging strike rate right now as well. And that's for their entire staff, not just their bullpen, not just their rotation, but when you combine the two, it is living on a razor's edge right now. You're going to need all those double plays that they've been getting. You're going to need to limit that walk rate compared to what it's been so far this year. Otherwise, you're going to have to increase the strikeout rate. Eventually, something will have to give. We said last year at this point, hey, man, they're finding a way to do this with a pitch-to-contact rotation and really, really excellent defense. T-Bone bought in fact.
I've learned my lesson.
Strikeouts not that important for this team. Look at how great they are defensively. And eventually we found out, all right, yeah, that pitch-to-contact stuff is not something that is sustainable over the long haul unless you have a truly special offense. And that's what I'm curious about is, can they find a way to overcome it with their offense? I think probably no. But that's the one way that they'll be able to continue to sustain this is if the top 4 is real in their lineup right now, and you're able to add in like a Lars Nootbaar, who maybe gets back to form from a couple of years ago now that he's healthy. Mason Wynn continues to play that way that he has really for the last 3 to 4 weeks now, and maybe one other piece starts to emerge, whether that's Jimmy Crooks or somebody else that comes up from the AAA level. But that's the one way where you could potentially overcome even a lack of pitching. But even then, it's tough.
Yeah,
you're living on a
most teams
razor's edge.
Can't come across and survive with this kind of pitching, right? The only teams that I can think of in recent history were like the ones in the early 2000s when it was the Rockies, right? They would just outslug their problems because they had to, because they play in Mile
Or the
High.
Cardinals when they went on that incredible stretch run
like
towards the
04.
end when they brought in John Lester and Jay Happ and all of that.
Sure, I
Like
actually
they went
don't
on
even
that
know-
run down the stretch.
That
21,
wasn't really,
right? Is that 21? Yeah.
That wasn't even really, though, carried by so much the offense. Their pitching just happened to do what they're doing now for a 2-month stretch, where it survived on the good defense.
But still, I mean, when you think of John Lester and Jay Happ in your rotation, it's not anything that you're like, oh, yeah, there's the swing and miss
And
stuff.
that was similar to this in that they had 5 quality innings out of their starters. The difference, they had a dominant bullpen that year.
And that's what you don't
and
have.
this year, you don't have that. And that did come together on the fly, though. It was not that way for most of the season. And then you got to like July, August, September, and you were able to build up some of these pieces that ultimately got you into the
So
postseason.
the arms they got were on waivers.
That's right. TJ McFarland and Luis Garcia.
Yeah.
And
then you also had Alex Reyes as the closer that year, I
Giovanni
think.
Gallegos.
Yeah. That was a really good bullpen that was able
And
to
Hein
develop
Bloom
over
did
time.
all of that for the Cardinals.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone on BKJ. Our next.
Tanner Hendrickson here with the Sports Center update brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. The Cardinals took down the Brewers last night 6-3. Game 2 of their 3-game set is supposed to be tonight at 6:45. Andre Plante is scheduled to be on the mound for the St. Louis Cardinals. And coming up next year on BK and Ferrario, we'll talk with our Blues insider Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic. This portion update was brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Happy to go out to the Kiley and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, Blues Insider for The Athletic. He's Jeremy Rutherford joining us here on the show. JR, it's lottery day in the NHL. How you doing this morning, my man?
Can't wait for that lotto.
You think they're going to win it?
You know what? You just sit here and you think about, it coming at 6 o'clock. And are they going to, after everything, all the talk, they're winning, they're ruining their lottery pick. Watch them go win this thing. I don't know. I don't know if it's a vibe or what it is. I just feel a little wonky about the possibility here.
I don't like this. I don't know, JR. You need to put it into the atmosphere, my man. You need to be confident and say they're not only going to win the lottery, but they're going to win the lottery with Detroit's pick, too, and have 2 in the top 5.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, how about that? Yeah, that could happen. And you look at the last 5 years, I think I looked up the last 5 years in terms of that number 1 pick. 3 of the years it's been the number 1 team with the best odds kept it. And then it was number 3 one year. That was Connor Bedard in Chicago. And then last year, I'm sure you guys have dissected it, number 10, the New York Islanders. So it is possible, but 3 of the 5 years, the number 1 team kept it, so it could be tough.
And the 5 first number 1 overall picks that you're referencing there, Owen Power, Slavkovsky, easy for you to say.
Marvick Bork.
Connor Bedard, Macklin Celebrini, and Matthew Schaefer. Pretty decent.
Only 2
results.
of those were good. All the others were trash. Am I right?
I would take any of the 5.
Understood. No,
who would you take? Who would you take, though? I think I know the answer here, but
out
who
of
would
those
you guys
5,
take?
if I could have one of them, Macklin Celebrini, and it's not close.
Yeah. I think it's a tier. I think it's Celebrini, Schaefer, and then the tier drop off, because I'd take either one of those.
Yeah, I'd take Celebrini first, but man, Schaefer, holy smokes.
Yeah, he's good. Celebrini is my number 1.
BK doesn't appreciate defensemen. He still doesn't even know who Zach Werenski is.
No, I'm familiar with this game now.
You're familiar with this game?
Yeah.
JR, this sounds like a dumb question, but, I mean, in all reality, with Steen taking over on July 1st, how far does this advance the Blues if they were to win this lottery tonight?
Yeah, it's just a jolt. It really is. And the Blues haven't had a lot of top picks, as you guys know. And when you go back to 2006, number 1, I'll never forget talking to Larry Plow and I think it was Yarmo, and they said they were going to take Eric Johnson. And I remember, I'm sure he knew it at the time. Somebody told him, he probably figured it, but I was able to get on a phone call with Eric Johnson and said, hey, the Blues have publicly said they're going to take you number 1 overall. And that phone call, just hearing his excitement, it was cool. And listen, he's a good player, won a Stanley Cup, doing a great job, by the way, with the broadcasting these days. But it just isn't that electric, dynamic offensive player like we were talking about with Celebrini a moment ago. And with Gavin McKenna and Ivar Stenberg, these are 2 guys that, maybe they don't fit that Celebrini mold, but there's still a couple players that are going to come in or could come in and give this team a jolt as Steen takes over. So, I don't know that it speeds up the retool in terms of 1, 2, 3 years or what it does, but it sure would help that forward group that's had some tough time scoring and has a lot of good wingers, but could use some setup guys.
Jeremy Rutherford, our guest here on 101 ESPN. By the way, you can read his latest piece, the Blues fan survey. He got all of the results, nearly 2,000 responses on this. You can check that out over on The Athletic. And I did want to ask you about this, JR, because there are a few that I would say kind of surprised me a little bit. One in particular, would you be okay if the Blues sold low on Jordan Kyrou? It was legitimately a 50-50 split on this one. JR, what did you make of that?
Yeah, and so, I've looked at the results since they came in yesterday, and usually when we do this survey, I know you guys ask which one was the most surprising, and to me, that's it. It's honestly it. I think some of the other results, some are surprising, but you kind of expected, close to what the turnout was. But with this one, just to give the numbers, would you sell low on Kyrou? Yes, 50.3%. No, 49.7%. And I was a little surprised. I know I said last week, I wrote it last week, that I would not sell low on Jordan Kyrou. You got a potential 35, 40 goal scorer when he's going right. He wasn't right last year. You have to get that stock up before you trade him. Yeah, I understand the argument that you move him to move him, you get better. You possibly get better with addition by subtraction, if that's what some people believe with Jordan Kyrou. But in this case, I think you have an asset that you have to maximize the most. And so, BK, I felt like we were probably in the minority thinking like that, but there's 49, 50% basically of people who would not sell them low either. So that was pretty surprising to me.
So with that being said, JR, we all know how Doug Armstrong operates. And if you were to give us the scenario, hey, you're going to sell low on Jordan Kyrou because it's an addition by subtraction, we'd say not happening. But we don't know with Alex Steen. And Steen values the locker room. Steen values the chemistry between players. And obviously it has been off for a few seasons. Do you think he views it a little bit more like the fans that were on the sell low on him?
I don't know, because I haven't had that conversation with him. But if, just knowing that Alexander Steen, to me, if anybody asks me about him, I say he just drips hockey. And so whether it's a move with Kyrou or another move this offseason, he's going to continue to bit by bit put this team in a better position to regain the culture that was here when he played, and eventually put the team on the ice that he feels plays the style that this roster should play. So whether it's now with Jordan Kyrou or later, I think something could eventually happen. The one thing I will say is, when anybody looks at a potential trade with Jordan Kyrou, they're going to look at the end result and say, did the Blues win it? Did they get what they deserved for him? Did they sell low? I don't know that that's always going to be easily identified right after the deal, because you could have a situation where it's a bigger trade and there's draft picks involved, or there could be another change of scenery player coming this way who maybe you look at him and say, well, they didn't get what Jordan Kyrou is, but then that player changes scenery and becomes that type of player, like people think that Kyrou could if he went somewhere else. So I don't know that the day a trade's made with Jordan Kyrou, if that's the case, that we're going to be able to say, hey, the Blues won or lost this trade. I think that we're just going to have to see what develops, whether it's this summer or later on. But eventually, Alexander Steen's going to put the team on the ice that he thinks is going to play the style that he wants to play.
All right, JR, I want to expand our conversation a bit here for a moment. Tampa Bay has lost in the first round. I believe it's 4 consecutive seasons. There are questions of what their plan looks like for the offseason. Toronto's new GM was called a fraud and a con artist yesterday in a press conference by one of the local media members who said that is the way he's been described by fellow executives across the NHL. Said it's a joke that he even got this job. You look around further, and New Jersey is certainly not happy with where they're at. You look in the Central Division, Nashville feels stuck. Winnipeg, no clue what their future outlook is going to be. LA was supposed to be further beyond than this. Vancouver is in the midst of a full-blown tank at this point. It feels as though, Edmonton, who I didn't mention just yet, was called out by their 2 best players for being an average team this year, and then Leon Draisaitl said, hey, McDavid has 2 years left on his contract. We're on the clock. I also failed to mention that there was a piece by your colleague Chris Johnston earlier today who said Toronto is on the clock with Austin Matthews, who's not sure if he's going to be back this year, despite having 2 years remaining on his contract.
What an offseason.
Okay, I say all of that to ask you this.
He sucks.
1, is anybody happy in the NHL right now? And 2, are we about to see an all-time offseason when it comes to trades? Because as Alex mentioned, the free agency class sucks this offseason as well.
Yeah, first of all, can I ask you guys a quick question? Who, myself or Katie Wu, would have asked that question up in Toronto yesterday, if you had to pick one here?
Between you and Katie?
Probably Katie.
I think you, actually.
Ask her when she comes on here in a little bit. I want to hear her.
JR would have had a 3-parter, and he would have snuck that one into the middle part of the question. He would have sandwiched it.
Being real, I think Jeff Jones was the most likely St. Louis reporter to ask that exact question.
Yeah.
And I don't say that as a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying I think he's the one that's most likely to ask it.
I don't know if anybody's calling a guy a con artist in a press conference here.
He said he had it as a quote verbatim. I mean, you're just relaying the news.
Golly.
Yeah. Steve Simmons. Yeah, two-parter. My second question is, you're a fraud. What do you think?
Two-parter, second part. You're a con artist.
Well, no, you build a strong case for the possibility of a lot of trades. I'm always of the belief that when you think that's coming, it doesn't come. And I'm not just talking about the Blues. Obviously, you're talking about league-wide. So, yeah, everybody's kind of in a tough spot. You know, I know that you spelled it out well, but we could probably make that case with a lot of teams. Each year, it just seems, you know, as you move into the future, as this cap goes up, as guys re-sign early to get that security, it takes them out of the free agency pool. Every summer, it seems like free agency has gotten less and less interesting every year because of that. A lot of guys getting 7- and 8-year deals. I know the 8-year deals disappearing, but as you set it up, I think there could be some movers and shakers, but you know, at the same time, you just got to find the right partner, and that's why it's been so tough for the Blues the past couple of years to make some of these deals. Not to mention, you know, I should have said this earlier, and the answer is that so many no-trade clauses, so many.
JR, appreciate the time as always, man. Looking forward to the lottery tonight, seeing what that means for the Blues build. We'll certainly be talking about that next week. I'm sure you'll have full coverage over at The Athletic over the coming days and weeks. All the best, man. We'll talk with you again next week.
You guys too. Thanks a lot.
You got it. That's Jeremy Rutherford joining us as he does each and every Tuesday here on BK and Ferrario. It is a classic Tuesday here on BK and Ferrario as Katie Wu joins us coming up in the 12 o'clock hour. We will also be joined for our weekly conversation with Derrick Goold in the 1 o'clock hour as well. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. That's coming up next. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in now on the Air Comfort Service text line. From the 314, Alex, if the Blues do not win the lottery tonight, don't even know why we're thinking that way, but let's assume that.
Yeah, what the?
Where and what would their picks be?
So if they don't win the lottery and they don't get pushed back, which means if somebody else wins the lottery, then they would move back. They would be at 11 and 15.
If they were to move back, though, the likelihood is it would be like 12 and 16.
Well, yeah, I don't even know if 15 would move back. I think it's just
good.
It's got to be somebody behind the Blues that moves up. That would move the Detroit one back. Yeah. So I think 15 is pretty much guaranteed, and then 11. I think it's a higher percentage chance that it stays at 11 than it is moving back. So you're probably pretty likely to be in that 11th overall pick.
Odds are very high. You're going to pick no further down than 11 and 15.
But remember,
there's a possibility though that you could move up.
There's two lotteries. There's the lottery for the first overall pick and the second overall pick. Mm-hmm. So there's two. Basically, you've got a 3 or 3.5% chance to get the first overall pick and the second overall pick. So you're just hoping one of those, lottery balls bounces in your favor.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. From the 319, Alex, do you think Vancouver gets the number 1 overall pick tonight? Or do your tinfoil thoughts on if Chicago and Toronto move up, they could get to 1 or 2?
I think my gut tells me Vancouver, but if you want my tinfoil theory, it's Toronto or Seattle wins it. Toronto, for obvious reasons. They got a con artist that's probably conning right now and trying to keep Austin Matthews. I do think my tinfoil theory on this, they need Seattle to succeed. And Seattle has had really no success since they've entered the league. This would be the moment that they're like, cool, let's inject some life into them and give them the first overall
Nashville's
pick.
another one. They feel stuck right now.
I can
Nashville
see that one
bumping up. The thing that's going to be hilarious
is if Florida wins it.
Well, yeah,
because that will piss me off.
I'm thinking
if somebody moves up, that's behind Toronto in the lottery.
Oh yeah.
Their pick would then be transferred over because it's only protected 1 to 5. Right now, they have the 5th best odds to be the number 1 overall selection. But if somebody behind them, like if the Blues were to win the lottery, Toronto would lose its pick. Anybody 6 to 15 or 6 to 16 that wins the lottery, that would mean that Toronto does not have a first-round selection this year.
They get they've got a really a 58% chance that their pick is going to Boston compared to a 30% chance that they get to keep their pick.
I don't like those odds for a team that could really use a top 5
and
pick.
If you just go through all of the teams behind Toronto with Seattle and Winnipeg and Florida, San Jose, Nashville, and St. Louis, combined those teams combined have better odds to get the first overall pick than Toronto does to stay at the 5th.
I will say this. If they don't have that first pick, I would be on Matthew Nye's watch this offseason. I don't know how else they upgrade this roster.
I think they might trade Matthews. I think the reason that Johnston's having this report is that Austin Matthews is like, look, man, I don't know if I want to be here anymore. And
if I'm Toronto, I say, I don't care. You're playing with us for 1 more year.
I think.
But doesn't Nyes have more control?
He has 6 years. He just signed that contract. And there's no trade protection. With Matthews, he has a full no move. He determines where he's going, so you can't get a huge return for him. Matthew Nyes could get you a massive return given his contractual status.
The reason I bring that up is, okay, so if I do make those moves and we'll see if you improve or not, and I just traded away Nyes and then in 2 years Matthews is gone, boy, did I really screw the pooch then.
Yeah,
that's why I would say if you are going to make a move, I think I'm with Alex. I think it's got to be Matthews.
You got 2 years with Matthews, and if he's basically telling you, like, I'm not re-signing here, and I know what you're saying, like, 1 more year, you're not going to make that team a Stanley Cup contender in 1 year. I think I would go to Matthews and be like, where do you want to go? Let's try and find this and capitalize on something.
I don't think you're going to make it a Stanley Cup contender in a year. I also think trading Matthews now is just bad business. Because if you end up not making it a Stanley Cup contender overnight and this upcoming season does not go well, at least you still can trade Austin Matthews, either at the deadline or in the offseason.
Yeah.
And if you trade him now, that's it. I don't think the price is going to drop that much compared to where it's at today. Because if you're trading him today, you're trading it to where he wants to go. If you're trading him at the deadline or the next offseason, you're still trading him to where he wants to go. So the price ain't going to be all that significant either way. But it's a fascinating offseason for them. Last question here from the 314. Guys, what are the odds right now for J.J. Weatherholtz to win NL Rookie of the Year? It's a great National League class. So they're not as good as you would expect. Sal Stewart is currently the favorite, the rookie for the Reds. He's at 2-1, according to the Vegas odds. Nolan McLean, the starter for the New York Mets, is next at 3-1, and Vinitz Weatherholt at about 4.5-1 odds. So you bet $100, you'd win about $440 today. But behind him, it's Connor Griffin, it's Owen Cassie. Like, you've got a lot of other dudes in the National League that are still interesting as well. So it's going to be a fun race the entire season this year. But 4.5-1 odds is where JJ Weatherholt is today. I would probably hold off on that if you're thinking that he's going to win it, because I think you might be able to get better odds when he's not in the midst of a power stretch right now.
When he goes cold, that'll be when the odds maybe start to dip a little bit. I'm with you there. If you think he's going to win it, I would wait a little bit.
On the National League MVP side of things, by the way, Jordan Walker today is at 60-1 odds. That I would place a little bit of cash on today. I don't think that I don't necessarily think he's going to win it. I think Shohei is just a lock every year until he's not healthy anymore.
It's name recognition, like every league is for the awards.
Yeah, but for Walker, if he were to continue doing what he's done and he just has this ridiculous power season, he's going to be one of the storylines of the year. I'll go ahead and throw, $10-20 on that if you want. Could get you a nice little payout. Coming up in about 15 minutes, how much does the draft lottery change things for the St. Louis Blues? And let's take a look at some comparisons for the top draft prospects based upon their statistical profile. We'll do that coming up in 15 minutes. But next, how much of what the Cardinals are doing this year is related to moving on from their older veterans? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. So how much of the Cardinals' success is based upon moving on from their older veteran players? This is something that Ken Rosenthal wrote about earlier today over on The Athletic. He wrote the following: young players sometimes tread lightly around veterans, reluctant to express themselves. The Cardinals this offseason traded Nolan Arenado, Wilson Contreras, and Sonny Gray, effectively liberating their youngsters, allowing for a new culture to form. He then continued from there. With those guys plus Donovan gone, shortstop Mason Wynn, first baseman Alec Burleson, and backup catcher Pedro Pajes have emerged as leaders for their position players. Also, left-handed starter Matthew Liberatore has become a leader for the pitchers. In recent years, St. Louis previously was a place where a number of young players had failed, only to go on to succeed elsewhere. Chaim Bloom is trying to reclaim the Cardinals' identity as an organization built on young talent. It then continues from there, but that's the general vibe. Hey, older players gone, younger players have developed, and now this is their culture. That is then backed up by these quotes from Mason Wynn in a piece by Derrick Goold over the last 24 hours. Quote, "It's been a lot of fun to this point. A lot of us are around the same age. A lot of us think alike. We're really embracing the culture. Winning helps a lot. We're tight. We're going to be playing together for another 3-4 years. We're going to grow together. It's fun to be a part of that. Having a lot of these guys coming to the ballpark that enjoy coming together to play together and play for it is huge. Everybody wants to see everybody else succeed. So it's like one guy gets a knock, the whole team gets fired up. Hitting can be contagious. When another guy makes a play, everybody then gets fired up, and everybody then wants to make a play. We say it a lot. Everyone is pulling the same rope. Everyone genuinely wants to see the other guy succeed. This is probably the most selfless team I've ever been a part of. That's who we are," end quote. Alex, I'm not saying that, hey, you should blame Wilson Contreras. You should blame Sonny Gray. You should blame Miles Michaelis. You should blame Eric Fetty. You should blame Brendan Donovan for the young players not having success previously. But I'm asking the question, do you think the success in 2026 is related to that, letting those guys walk or trading them?
Yeah, I think there's a large slice of the pie that goes into that. I'm not going to sit here and act as if that's the only reason this team has success, because I think Wilson Contreras' attitude matches and mimics a lot of what these guys are in the clubhouse. I think if you were to pinpoint one, I think it would be Nolan Arenado. I think Nolan Arenado had that uptight attitude that everybody kind of had to tread lightly around, that if you lose, Arenado's not happy and you don't want to upset the veteran in the clubhouse. But I do think that there's a lot that goes into when you eliminate some of the guys that all of the eyes are on, and you do have to put that seniority of like, this is how this guy acts and we need to make sure we adhere to it. You don't let the young guys get to be their own person and have their own personality. And I think that's what you're seeing with this team right now. They're allowing their personality to take over, and there's just a little bit more of a, when you're up there and you're working through it, like Ollie addressing with Jordan Walker, of like, now he's not overestimating his at-bats. Like, I think when you take that pressure away, whether it's the pressure from the veterans or just the pressure of trying to win because those veterans are there, I do think it allows these younger players to go on and have a little bit more responsibility and be more themselves.
I'll ask a question to you, BK, because you've been in the locker room. You were there on Sunday. Does it feel different from last year? Because I don't remember it feeling like kind of tight last year.
So it's so hard for me to say. Let's be clear here what we get when we go to the clubhouse. We are in there for a little less than an hour. The guys are in and out. They're eating a lot of the time, or they're going out to do their on-field work. They're in the cages. Like, we don't really get to see them in their true environment. So it would be me talking out of turn to suggest that we do. And then after the game, to be totally honest, they get out of there as quick as possible so they don't have to talk to us.
Yeah, smart.
Not everybody, but a lot of guys do. Like, Dustin May didn't talk after his start on Sunday. He just wasn't available. He had already left by the time we got to the locker room, which wasn't that long after the game. We literally got in, talked to Ollie, went into the clubhouse. He was gone. So I want to make sure that I use that as a disclaimer here. That being said, one thing that I did notice after the game on Sunday that I thought was kind of interesting, you had a lot of the young guys. I think it was like Walker, Wynn, and I think maybe it was Church that was over there. I don't want to say who I can't recall who the third person was, but there were at least 3 or 4 guys that were all just kind of sitting and talking together. in the corner. And previously, there were kind of, certain guys that would be talking together. A lot of the time, it was the older guys that would talk to older guys. It was younger guys that would talk to younger guys, and it didn't feel like that. But I've only been there once so far this year because I've gone to a lot of games as a fan with my son this year, so I don't want to speak out of turn. I'll give my quick thoughts on this, T-Bone, and I want to hear yours as well. I think I'm kind of swimming upstream with my opinion on this. I don't think a lot of people share my view. How many guys this year are performing at a level that is different than what you necessarily would have expected coming into the season? I want to ask this to give you my opinion on it here in a moment. How many guys are outperforming what you expected out of them?
I'd say Walker.
Definitely.
Church.
I think that's fair.
I would put Weatherholt on there personally.
I would too. Do you think Weatherholt would have played like this if the other guys would have been here?
Yeah.
I do too. I don't think anything changed for J.J. Weatherholt. I think this is who he is. On the pitching side of things, do you guys feel like there's anybody that's wildly outperforming expectations?
Wildly outperforming expectations?
I don't.
No, not really.
No. Maybe Riley O'Brien, if you want to go down that path.
I'll say Palante's outperforming expectations. I think Palante's been pretty good this year.
Do you think it would have been different for Palante if, I don't know, Sonny Gray would have been here?
No.
And that's why I'm struggling with this, is because I actually think that the stuff that we're talking about with the veterans being gone is more about us as fans than it is about the team. I'm not so sure how much that's actually impacted the team's performance on the field. Now, the vibes, maybe, and that's something that is impossible to quantify. I do think there's a chance that what Alex is saying is true. I think there's a chance that these guys are walking around less on eggshells than they were last year.
And that's where I feel like it translates to on-field performance, which is so hard to judge.
Maybe, but those guys that we're talking about that are performing this year mostly were performing last year. Like, Burleson's just been a good hitter for a while now.
But I think what makes this team different is Walker.
Yeah, but I don't know.
And she's the one that I think does make a difference.
I fully agree with you on that, and that's why I wanted to get back to him. That's my last guy, because I don't know what's changed for Walker. There are a lot of theories on it, a lot of them. Some of it goes back to, hey, man, there's an assistant hitting coach that's around right now that wasn't around last year. Does that matter? Because it sure seems to. Like, they sent him down there to Double-A, and it seemed like that was kind of a moment where things clicked for him. This offseason, it feels like stuff changed for him. The team talked about him differently. He talked about stuff differently. Heard some stories around the locker room over the weekend. Like, this is, I think, a real change for Jordan Walker. There are some tangible differences between how he was going about things previously and how he's going about things now. I think he took his career into his own hand, and I think he saw the writing's on the wall here if I don't get this stuff going. Like, I'm not just guaranteed to be a big leaguer anymore. I'm no longer that top draft prospect. I'm no longer a guy that's like walking around here like I'm the big man on campus. No, my spot is at risk for the first time in my career, really. And if I don't get it figured out, it could be over quicker than I expected it to be. So I think there's been real changes here. I have no idea how much that is affected or not affected by the lack of clubhouse veterans. So to me, I think that stuff that we talk about, it's easy from the outside looking in to say, hey, this has so much value, where in reality, I'm not so sure how much it really matters other than for us, it's a breath of fresh air. I don't know how much it's really impacted the Cardinals in their overall success this season, personally.
I would lean it doesn't impact them in their overall success, because what you just said about Jordan Walker was Jordan Walker internalizing, hey, my spot's on the line. I need to do what it takes to make me a big leaguer. Not, well, I went to Wilson and Wilson says I'm doing this and then I can't figure it out. And now that Wilson's gone, now I can do my own thing. No, I don't think that happened. I think that was Walker took his career into his own hands. And I think those guys that we're talking about, the ones that got traded, would the Cardinals be better with I don't know where he's hitting, but with a Wilson Contreras, with a Brendan Donovan on their team? Yeah, those are good players, right? Like, that would help the St. Louis Cardinals out and make their lineup
deeper.
deeper.
My argument is, why weren't they then?
What do you mean?
Why weren't they good when those guys were here last year?
They didn't have the pitching last year. They
and
don't have the pitching this year.
Walker weren't this.
Exactly.
But Walker is the difference, and I think that there's a little bit more ease when Walker realizes.
I think there's ease for Walker because Walker's figured out how to be a big leaguer.
Because I think he's forced into it now, where it's not like I can't say that there's no value on it with those guys not being here when it's obviously they're not, and he has changed something.
See, this is where we always divvy. Like, does having a good locker room lead to success? I would say it doesn't matter what the locker room is. It's what are the players doing individually that are going to lead to you having success. And then winning ultimately leads to a good locker room, right? It's the chicken or the egg conversation.
But I feel like if there's pressure in the locker room, it's hard to have success.
I don't get the sense that Contreras and Donnie were putting pressure on. Now, I would hear that argument from 2 years ago, right? When Arenado had the comment of, hey, we're too young, and me and BK were both in that locker room looking around, what the hell is he talking about?
But that's what I mean. It's not that they're verbally putting pressure on people. It's the feeling of these guys are veterans, and we should be winning because this is supposed to be a winning team, and we're not winning, so I need to perform. I need to step my game up. And that's where I feel like that pressure is gone. The expectation of winning wasn't there this season.
I would argue there was more pressure on Walker this year because of what BK said, which is, hey, if I don't hit this year, man, I get to go ride the buses back at AAA.
Now, I will tell you this.
I mean, he was riding the buses at AAA.
Yeah, fair. I think it would have been more of a, if I don't hit now, I'm gone. My time with this organization will be over, and I will be signing minor league deals with other teams. To me, one of the things that I do wonder about is the mental aspect of it with Walker. Like, Walker's the thing that changes everything about this season. He looks like a potential star. It appears that he's figured it out. It changes the trajectory for the 2026 cards, 27, 28, 29, and so on, right? This is a guy that changes everything about your outlook. I do wonder, hey, when he started hitting, there was an opportunity for him to bat cleanup for this team and to be the guy and to be like the face of the franchise again. If those other guys are here, that is blocked to a degree. Like Arenado was hitting in that spot, or Contreras was hitting in that spot. And so there is something different about being able to walk around with a different sense of confidence about you. And I do think there's some value in that. How do you define it? How do you place like all of the, I don't know, but there's something to that. But I don't think he started hitting because those guys were gone. I think he started hitting because he figured it out. And I do agree with T-Bone. He learned how to be a big leaguer. So, I don't know, man. Like, if Brendan Donovan were here this year, I think the Cardinals would be a better team for 2026.
Instead of having a guy at third base that's 10% below league average in Gorman.
Or just replacing Nathan Church's production, which has been good, don't get me wrong, but it ain't what you had last year with Brendan Donovan or what he's been so far this season. I think you're a better team with Donnie. The reason they made those moves was not about 2026. It was about 27, 28, and 29, and potentially improving your team for future seasons more so than for the here and now. I also wonder what this team would be like with Sonny Gray on it. I think you'd be better, to be honest with you. Like you put Kyle Leahy into the bullpen, you put Sonny Gray into his spot in the rotation. If you had those two pieces, and the only real move of significance you made this offseason, two of them, I suppose, we're trading Wilson Contreras to open up first base for Alec Burleson.
And trading
Arenado to just remove that from the equation. I think the Cardinals are better right now. I also think you put yourself into a better position for the future, and you made it very clear in what your outlook is by making those moves. So I think both things can be true, in my personal opinion. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll be joined by Katie Wu. We'll get her perspective on all of this in 15 minutes. But next, how much does the draft lottery change things from the Blues' perspective? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN. The NHL Draft Lottery is tonight. It is important for the St. Louis Blues. Alex, they have a 3% chance to be the number one overall selection. They also have a 0.5% chance to move up with the Detroit pick as well. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. How much does this matter tonight?
A lot. I mean, in all reality, you're going to be picking 11th, but I mean, I'm hopeful that they get this first overall pick because I think if you can win this lottery, you can be very similar to what Montreal has done. You look at what Montreal has done over the years to where they've drafted Cole Caulfield, they traded for Nick Suzuki, they've done the right thing. When they got the first overall pick or even the 5th overall pick, when they took Slavkovsky or Demidov, that's what really shifted them into this position because they just kept acquiring that type of talent to play towards the top while they all developed. So, man, if you win the first overall pick or even the 2nd overall pick tonight and you're able to draft a McKenna or a Stenberg, you put that into the system with Snuggerud and Holloway and Thomas and Broberg and Hofer and Jiricek and Carbonneau, Neighbors. You're doing very similar to what the Montreal Canadiens did, to where they had all of the young talent that they felt like could start to win, and they just needed to accumulate as many assets as possible. But sometimes you need to get that difference maker. And I think if you can acquire one of these guys, this is how you lengthen that lineup on the offensive side.
Can I read you a couple of scouting reports on Gavin McKenna and Ivar Stenberg? This comes from Corey Pronman of The Athletic.
Sure. Corey, who has literally been down on so many prospects that the Blues have drafted.
Well, not only the Blues, also the top prospects of this year.
Checks out.
Teams are very excited about Gavin McKenna's potential to be an 80-plus point winger who can run a first power play unit as well. The only real debate, though, is whether or not his lack of physicality and a tendency to be pushed to the perimeter will limit his impact at the next level, especially in the playoffs.
Physicality broke a guy's jaw because he called his mom a name.
Yeah.
That's physical.
That is apparently the concern with Gavin McKenna.
It's always been the concern.
Whether or not he's going to be physical enough to be a real postseason type of a performer.
And that's what happened in college when he got there. Now, towards the end of his college season, he was better, but, I mean, he was just a perimeter guy. He's not going to the net.
All right, here's Ivar Stenberg's breakdown. Quote, teams mostly view his game as a notch or two below McKenna in terms of his skill or offensive flash, but he works harder. His game translates more effortlessly to the NHL level. If there's a knock on him, it's that you probably aren't drafting a future superstar. Given his 5'11" frame, that's fine, but he also doesn't have great foot speed, and he lacks McKenna's special stick. He provides you potential 60 to 80 point winger production that coaches can depend upon. It would be very unsexy given what he is if he were the number one overall selection. But, quote, it is very much in play, end quote.
That's the one I disagree with. And I mean, be it me to disagree with Pronman, he watches a lot more than I do. But just the times that I have seen Ivar Stenberg, I feel like the guy's always competitive. Like the comp that I've always seen is William Nylander for Ivar Stenberg. He's got the shot. He's faster. I'd say Nylander's probably faster than Stenberg, but he doesn't shy away from the net front presence, and he's got a really dangerous shot. So that's the one that I would disagree with, but I get it. I mean, there's a consensus right now from a lot of scouts that Caleb Malholtzer could be the first overall pick because he's a centerman, and teams value centermen. And then you've got 5 different defensemen that you're choosing from. Yep. All of that to say, there's not a superstar in this draft. If you're looking and hoping for a McDavid or a Celebrini, you're not getting that. I don't think that's here. I think the next tier of what Slavkovsky has been, probably what Connor Bedard has been, to where I don't think he's the same level as Celebrini or
if
obviously
you get
McDavid.
Stenberg, are we talking about Holloway? That kind of production?
60, 80 points. Sounds like it.
I think it'd be a little bit more than Holloway, but I also think Holloway could be a little bit more than 60 to 80. But yeah, right away, if you're telling me they draft Stenberg and he's on the team next year, I could see, something like that.
Slightly lesser version of Holloway that can develop into something like that.
Probably towards the Nylander.
Gavin McKenna is a bigger version of Kyra?
Probably. Now, he has comped, and I've heard scouts say that there's a lot of Kucherov in him. I don't know the nastiness. They talk more the playmaking and the ability to see the ice and slow the game down.
All right, you want to hear the comparisons that they have over on ESPN.com?
This is going to really be in our Cheerios. I can just
This
tell.
is the one that's comparing the
BK's
stats, though,
smiling
right?
over there.
Correct.
This is nothing
their
more than just
statistical profile.
Yeah, this is nothing more than their stats.
I think this is about like their size, speed, what they've done, all of that, right? You ready?
Yep.
Gavin McKenna, Clayton Keller.
I could see that.
That'd be kind of disappointing for a number 1 overall pick, though.
Dude, Keller over the last 2 years, 90 and 88 points,
Keller's
30,
awesome.
30 goals per year.
Okay,
Keller's
never
awesome.
mind.
I would
Yeah,
take
never mind.
Clayton
I would
Keller.
Take that.
Ivar Stenberg, William Nylander.
That's the comp that I have heard so much, and I mean he put up more points than Nylander and the Sedin brothers and juniors at the same age.
Carson Carrolls, is that how you pronounce that last
Yeah,
name?
defenseman.
Defenseman out of the WHL, Zach Werenski.
I'm familiar with his game.
Me too, buddy. Me too.
I'm familiar with him.
Chase Reed, who people really seem to like,
Yeah.
OHL defenseman, comps to Evan Bouchard.
Yeah. You already got your Evan Bouchard and Philip Broberg, right?
Yeah, but how about another one?
Oh, that's true.
Daxon Rudolph, WHL
I like
defenseman.
This is a reality if the Blues are picking 11th.
Noah Hannafin.
Yeah. This one's a reality because this guy could be around the spot that you're picking.
Nikita Klepov?
Yeah.
From the OHL. Kyle Connor.
This is another one that's apparently very possible for
Keaton
the Blues.
Verhoff from North Dakota, college player. Most closely resembles Aaron Ekblad.
That's what I've heard a lot of.
Ethan
Belkets. This is that 6'6", like 240-pound 18-year-old.
Valerie Nichushkin.
Am I getting the Colorado Avalanche Nichushkin or am I getting the Dallas Stars Nichushkin?
I just am telling you that you're getting Nichushkin.
That would be a disappointment, but also a reality for the Blues at 11.
Caleb Malhotra.
Yeah, this is the center that I think
Matty
is going to
Beniers.
Yeah. And people want Malhotra. I'm just saying trade for Matty Beniers. He's already Matty Beniers.
Adam Novotny.
Novotny. Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say. OHL. Timo Meyer.
Yeah.
Is the comparison.
This is another reality, too. Do they have one for Ty Lawrence or Vigor Bjork?
Let me see. Vigo Bjork.
Yeah. This is a Swedish guy, if you didn't know.
Connor McMichael.
Yeah, okay. Second line center for the Washington Capitals. Not a superstar, but he's a reality at number 11.
Tylen Lawrence, you said? Nick Schmaltz.
Nick Schmaltz, another reality for the Blues. So, like, this is what you're talking about at 11 overall.
Well, that sounds like a deep class.
It is. I mean, everything that I've seen says that, and I think Wheeler's the one that had the most recent rankings. There are, you got 2 guys in the first tier, which is Stenberg and McKenna, and then you've got
11.
11, yeah.
13.
3 for 13. Yeah, 13 of them total. So, yeah, there's 11. So you have, in all reality, the chance to get a Tier 2 player, which if you go back and look at that draft in 2023 when they drafted Dvorsky was a Tier 3 player. So, like, Tier 2 that's what you want if you're not getting the first or second overall pick. Which, in all reality, if they win the lottery, I'm taking Stenberg over McKenna.
He has, by the way, Albert Smits as one of the players in his second tier. That guy is ranked 18th on the other list that I was looking at.
He's a Swiss defenseman who played in the Olympics.
And the comparison for him is Ryan
Pulock from the Islanders. Yeah,
Yep.
That's a good one, too. And that one, I think I've heard people say he's the most NHL-ready defenseman. Like, if team drafts him, there's a chance he's playing on your team next year.
Yeah, T-Bone's point is well taken. It's a deep draft once you get to that second tier. The difference here in this draft, it's honestly, it reminds me a lot of this most recent NFL draft. Hey, if you've got like a 5th to 25th pick, pretty good, but they're all kind of the same. Yeah. And you're probably not getting a superstar in this year's class. That seems to be what the general vibe is around this year's class. But if you're looking for one, you kind of have to get into the top 2, kind of like in the NFL draft, where if you're looking for a potential star edge rusher, it was basically, hey, Arvel Reese or David Bailey or good luck.
Yeah. That's it.
And that's pretty much what the tier 1 is in the NHL draft.
I will say this because I know we got to get to Katie on the other side.
Absolutely.
She's a Dodger and
if you're hoping for a positive that's not the Blues winning the lottery, hope that one of Winnipeg, Florida, or Seattle doesn't win the lottery. And what I mean by that is I think if those teams aren't picking first or second overall, there's a real chance that they're going to be willing to trade their first-round pick for players that can help them now. So if you don't want to sell low on Kyrou, there's a chance Kyrou in the 11th overall pick could get you to 5 or 6 or 7. And then you get that higher upside of players. It's what I'll be fascinated by tonight.
Katie Wu, previously the Cardinals insider, now a Dodgers insider, got to see the Cards over the weekend for the first time this year in person. What did she make of the new look St. Louis Cardinals? We'll ask Katie that next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here. The Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals took down the Brewers last night 6-3. Game 2 of their 3-game set supposed to be tonight, 6:45 first pitch. Andre Palante will be on the mound for the St. Louis Cardinals. And coming up next year on BK and Ferrario, Dodgers insider Katie Woo will join the show. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
It was great to catch up over the weekend with the former Cardinals insider, now Dodgers insider for The Athletic, Katie Woo. You can find all of her great work on Twitter at Katie J. Woo. She joins us now, as she used to each and every Tuesday on BK and Ferrario via the Kiley and Thompson hotline. Katie, appreciate the time as always. How you doing this morning?
Gentlemen, I'm great, and it only pulled at my heartstrings a little bit to hear used to. But life moves on, the game moves on without you, and I'm just happy to be back to talk about a series in which the Cardinals were pretty superior to the Dodgers over the weekend.
Come on, Katie, just a little bit? Like, it didn't hurt a little more than, like, come on. I thought we had a relationship or something like this.
I'm tough. I have to be tough, you know?
Do you ever, like, walk around, L.A. and see people and, like, see BK, Alex, and Tanner's faces in people because you miss us so much?
It's okay if you say.
You know, what I really miss is the Luka picks.
That's fair.
If I'm being honest.
That's fair.
That has been a big drawback, but,
They're still more successful than BK picks.
That's true. All right, Katie, I do want to ask you, because I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but our YouTube chat, since we made notice that you were going to be on the show today, is very unhappy with you. Apparently over the weekend you were on with KMOX and you said that the Cardinals got the B team pitchers for the Dodgers, which is just like objectively true.
How dare you?
Just like, it's a
no,
fact.
you guys.
Who do you think you are?
Robleski's like the best pitcher in the National League.
But Cardinals fans appear to be pretty upset about this comment. What do you have to say for yourself?
Yeah, I think that was taken completely out of context because I said it sarcastically, but I think maybe because it's been a minute, we forget that sarcasm doesn't translate. When I say, like, okay, they have the, like, back end of this rotation and their number 6 starter has a sub-1 ERA, okay, that was a joke. But obviously the joke didn't land. You have a name like Roki Sasaki out there, one of the best Japanese pitchers to come to the United States. If anything, when I was referring to it, I was saying, don't be disappointed because you're missing the big 3 in Yamamoto, Ohtani, and Glasnow. Like, these 3 guys may not have the notoriety as the first 3, but that doesn't mean they're any less good. But my mistake, Cardinals fans, my mistake. It was not at all meant to be a dig at either team. It was, hey, just because these guys aren't Ohtani and Yamamoto doesn't mean they're not good. Robleski has a, 0.56 ERA, 0.56 ERA as a starter. Clearly, there's nothing B about them.
Katie, sarcasm only works when you're here in St. Louis. When you're for another team, sarcasm doesn't work.
You were one of us, and now you're the enemy.
Yeah. No,
we still had that relationship.
You're the enemy now, and people don't like that, Katie.
The irony here is we literally said on Friday the Cardinals might be catching the Dodgers at the right time because you don't have to face any of their top 3 starters.
That's all I was trying to say. Oh, my goodness. Cardinals fans, I would never, of all people, would never take shots at this club. Not after what we went through. Come on.
In all seriousness, Katie, this was your first opportunity to see this version of the Cardinals in person this season. I know you still have a ton of relationships here in St. Louis, and I'm sure you've been watching from afar at times as well. The team has been fun, like genuinely fun, and Jordan Walker has been an unbelievable story. J.J. Weatherholt has been great so far this season in his rookie year. What have you made of watching this from afar, seeing how much different it is than the product that, unfortunately, you got to see over the last couple of years?
It's such a great point, and I think what's really struck me about this Cardinals club is they're playing without any sort of expectations, and I don't mean that as a dig. I was talking to Matthew Liberatore over the weekend, and he made up a really good point. He said, the team traded away all their veterans, and the guys left in the clubhouse are a core of youth, and everyone in that clubhouse, more or less, came up together through the minor leagues. Now, they didn't all reach the St. Louis Cardinals at the same time, but they've all crossed paths with each other coming up through player development. So they know each other, and they know how to play, and they have their chemistry. And they were tasked in the beginning of the year by Chaim Bloom and Ollie Marmol with a difficult assignment. Create the new culture, the new identity of what they hope will be the next brand of Cardinals baseball. Well, these guys are already familiar with their playing styles and how they operate and their chemistry. But because of where the team was in their history and their competitive window, a lot of these players weren't really allowed to be that. You know, they were fighting to stay up in the big leagues, and they were fighting to keep their jobs. They no longer have to do that. And what you've seen is a collective buy-in from a group that already knew each other pretty well in the minor leagues, now coming into the major leagues and having the opportunity where they said, nothing's on the table. It's a clear slate. Go out and go make something. Make this brand of Cardinals baseball what you want it to be. And they're doing that. And I genuinely think that's what's led to this kind of gritty, resilient mindset that they've had out there, and why they're so good at coming back from behind, why they've been able to have this record, is because they're playing the brand of baseball that they feel comfortable in. And that can make such a big difference in a quote-unquote alleged rebuild year, when really I think all this team is doing is rebuilding the expectations.
Just to expand on that, Katie, because we just had this conversation, do you think a lot of what they're doing and building this culture and attitude that they have is because they've moved on from a lot of those veterans like Wilson Contreras and Sonny Gray and Nolan Arenado?
I think there's something to be said, not as a slight to any of those players, obviously. We all know what the kind of weird middle ground that the 24 and 25 teams had to straddle with the change in front office leadership. Are they competing? Are they not? I won't say the word that, it's, maybe two words put together. Sometimes airplanes use it. I won't say that word on this show. But when you're looking at getting the veterans off the team, it just goes and frees up these younger guys to play again. And there doesn't seem to be any kind of clickiness in the clubhouse. Now, granted, I've always only in there for 3 days, but it just, to me, feels like because there aren't two directions of the organization being pulled, it's not like, hey, we want to compete for a wild card, but also we want to develop at the same time. It's we want to develop at the major league team, and we're willing to do that with the youngest team in the majors. That has freed them up to be more competitive and to play more free. It goes without saying, when you're a major league player and you go out there with minimum expectations, you can play a little bit more loose and play a little bit more relaxed. I'm not sure the younger guys of this club could feel that way with so many veterans on the club. And again, not a dig at the veterans, but that's just because that wasn't the direction that was being communicated with the entire team about where the organization wanted them to be.
Katie Wu joining us here on 101 ESPN. Katie, you got a front row seat to the Jordan Walker experience over the last few seasons. It was not particularly fun. This year, he's been one of the best players in Major League Baseball. How are you internalizing this after seeing what the first 3 years of his Major League career looked like?
Well, as a day one Jordan Walker truther, I'm elated. And I think we forget how young he is. And we said this throughout the last 3 years. He came up when he was 20 years old. And when you're looking at the Cardinals in general, I think Jordan Walker is the perfect example of the challenges they had in player development coming up. And he's not the only one. Ivan Herrera comes to mind as well. Plenty of the pitchers, Matthew Liberatore. But for Jordan, who came up with so much scrutiny and so much expectation, rightfully so because of his just overall athleticism, for him to fail and for the organization to not even put him in a chance to succeed, dating back to Double-A when they moved into the outfield for 3 months and then promoted him to the opening day roster, and when he was really one of the only guys producing, then sent him down, that chain effect of bouncing up and down between the majors and the minors, the fan expectations, the organization messaging, all of that can really get to a young guy. And I think Jordan Walker, he deserves a lot of credit for being able to put all the past issues aside, recommit to the organization. Ollie Marmol, Brant Brown, Casey Chenoweth, they've all done a great job in getting Jordan to buy back in. It's a two-way street. But now we're seeing the Jordan Walker that I think the Cardinals always believed they had. both sides just have made incredible adjustments into buying back into each other and figuring it out. Development isn't always linear. And when you come in as one of the most highly regarded prospects in the last 10 years and you struggle and then you continue to struggle, it's very easy as a player to let those voices get loud. But credit to Jordan and credit to the Cardinals organization, Ollie Marmol and his staff, what Chaim Bloom and Rob Cifolio have been able to do behind the scenes to get Jordan back on track. It's why we don't give up on players when they're 22 or 23 years old, is because you might miss out on an opportunity like this.
Katie, another guy that has been massively impressive has been J.J. Weatherholt. You heard the hype about this kid for the last few seasons. How much has he exceeded expectations in terms of just seeing what he's done early on?
It's been funny to watch J.J. Weatherholt through his minor league career because he just kind of always struck me as someone who was a pro. Like when you talk to him and you watch his interactions with the media, with fans, you're just like, that's the guy that gets it. And he has the makeup of a pro. And then you see him play second base and you're like, okay, yeah, that is it. That's a pro. I was blown away by the amount of just the middle infield in general between him and Mason Wynn over the weekend. He's the bat's real. The defense is real. And he just comes up and he gets it. And that's really hard for players to do. But because of who JJ is and how confident he is, the messaging behind him from the organization, JJ Weatherholt is an example of one, pure talent, don't get me wrong, but also the organization's commitment into drafting and developing and changing over the last 5 years into a way that actually gives their top players a chance to be successful at the big leagues when they get here. JJ had that opportunity, took off with it, ran with it. He is absolutely fun to watch, and in my opinion, a very, very early candidate for the National League Rookie of the Year.
Katie, the Dodgers are plus 190 to win the World Series this year.
Oh, great odds.
The Astros are plus 190 to beat the Dodgers today. Oh. What is that like to cover? Because, the Dodgers are as likely to win the World Series this year as they are to lose today. That's crazy. It feels impossible for a team to be in that place. Is that fun? Is that like the Dodgers regular season is basically a preseason? I'm truly curious what that's like.
It's confusing. I mean, they have Ohtani on the mound today, and those are the odds, but okay. It's different because we see like NBA teams do this all the time where they load manage. Well, the Dodgers are able to load manage better than any baseball team in MLB because of their incredible depth. And that is what has been the most different coming over from the Cardinals to the Dodgers, is because, as we know, guys, the last couple of years, there wasn't really any kind of depth throughout the system. And again, credit to Chaim Bloom, Rob Cifolio for changing that. The state of the Cardinals farm system is much different now than it was a couple of years ago. But the Dodgers are able to kind of just coast through the regular season because they have so much depth. It goes back to my infamous comment about the rotation. Justin Robleski is like their number 8 starter in their depth chart, and he's posting an overall 1.25 ERA. Mookie Betts has been on the IL since the first week of the season, and they have no Kike Hernandez or Tommy Edman, but they do have this platoon of Alex Freeland and Hae-Sung Kim that they can use. It's an embarrassment of riches for the Dodgers, and it makes covering the regular season a little difficult because, they haven't played good baseball over the last 2 weeks. They have been slumping. Cardinals saw this. Oh, for St. Louis was Shohei Ohtani. Can't remember the last time that's happened where he went hitless in a series. And there was virtually no slug. And at the end of the day, no one in that clubhouse, don't get me wrong, they're upset about it, but they're like, yeah, we're still one of the best teams in baseball. We still believe that we're going to three-peat. We're just going to kind of load manage and go through the early parts of the season and not get too high, get too low. It is a luxury, don't get me wrong, but it is a little weird coming over and seeing it as a newcomer.
Just as a quick follow-up, and we could spend the next hour on this, but we won't because we have instead 2 minutes. Do you think there should be a salary cap in Major League Baseball?
Oh, man. That's so tough. My first instinct says no, because you look at teams that are spending just as much or a little less than the Dodgers, like the Mets, and you see where they are. I don't think spending automatically equates to winning, okay. But I will say it's really hard for a team like Los Angeles and New York to say it's fair for them when you have mid-market teams, small market teams like Detroit, Pittsburgh, that simply cannot spend as much as the Mets or as the Dodgers because of where they are in their market, and also the collapse in TV deals with rights holders and revenue sharing is also a big factor in that. So my short answer is I don't know. And I think that's a big reason why we're likely heading to a lockout, because nobody knows the right answer here.
Great. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait. Katie, appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for hopping on with us today. Enjoy the rest of the regular season, which effectively serves as a preseason for the Dodgers. We'll be reading all of your great work over at The Athletic and talking with you again soon.
And easy on the shade, Katie.
Yeah, no, for real. Great to hear from you guys. We'll talk soon.
You're the best. Appreciate you. That's Katie Wu joining us here on 101 ESPN. Appreciate her time as always. You can find her over at The Athletic. It's a shame she talks so much trash on the Cardinals this weekend while she was here in St. Louis.
You know, I mean, when you go to the other side, you got to talk trash, right?
Junk Jordan next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Classic Air Care, the company that has been making people comfortable since 1926. When it comes to your HVAC system, now is the time where it starts to get really important, because you know that St. Louis weather is going to start heating up. Humidity is going to be awful. And if you've got an older unit and it hasn't been cleaned for a couple of years, you may have forgotten to change that furnace filter. It might be doing a lot of extra work. So now is when you get that maintenance to come out and do a quick tune-up. And this month, they're offering an $89 AC tune-up, to where they'll come out, they'll clean it for you, they'll make sure everything's good to go, and they'll even make sure that they give you a couple of tips to get you through the hot summer with this humidity. And you might look into the maintenance agreement after that, to where twice a year they come out and take care of your HVAC system for you. And if there's any issues that pop up, you get priority scheduling because you're a part of that group, that maintenance agreement group with Classic Air Care. You can check them out online. They've got a 5-star review because of their incredible customer service. They've got 100 vans out on the road, which means they're going to get to you within 24 hours. Call them today, schedule online. Just do me a favor and tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. Classic Air Care and classicaircare.com.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Let's dive into the junk drawer. First of all, just realized, Alex, they mentioned somebody just came in and said, hey, they've got a bunch of Raisin Canes in the front for you guys. That brought back memories. Yes, is it Dunk's birthday? It sure is. May
nice.
5th, Cinco de Mayo. It is official. It is Dunk's birthday today. He would have been 45 years old today. So rest in peace to our friend, former colleague, Chris Duncan. May 5th would have been his birthday. Real quick here, Alex. I saw this story yesterday. Wanted to mention it. Man, it sure doesn't seem as though the World Cup is going to be a huge success in Kansas City. I don't know if you guys have seen any of these numbers just yet, but they're like 75 to 90% below expectations on hotels that have been sold in Kansas City. And there's no clear and obvious reason as to why. Now, some of it, I promise you this is not a political point, it's just part of the explanation, is because of visa issues and stuff like that from some of these other countries. People are wondering, like, hey, are they just not going to come from other countries to Kansas City for fear of like deportation potentially while they're here? And then the other aspect to this is they think there's a lot of people that are going to be coming in regionally to KC, and they're just not booking up the hotels. So some of the economic impact that was expected to be taking place around the World Cup, I know there was some disappointment here in St. Louis when it was not announced as one of the host cities. It sounds like it might not be as economically boosting for the city as it was expected.
That's crazy. How much are tickets going for?
Oh, dude, if you want to get them on the secondary market right now, you're talking $500 minimum.
Damn.
To get into a game while it's in Kansas City.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And immediately upon being sold, they were also crazy expensive.
And FIFA's had a couple of
Dude.
questionable
Have you seen
sales
some of that
practices. Yeah. Where
They
like
say
there's
that
one
you're
where-
buying in one area,
Yeah, they
and then
call
they
it-
like completely change how the stadium is being oriented.
You may know this better than me, but I think it's sold as like a kind of like a section or kind of an area where you have, so they'll call it like Section 8. So that's supposed to be like front row, right? Your front row. And then you buy those tickets, and then it was like a year later they announced, well, that's actually technically Section B. We're actually going to sell something
That
else
pissed
at
me off.
Section A.
That pissed me off.
People are big mad.
It's FIFA, man. If you've ever watched the documentary on Netflix about when they were led by their previous leadership group, I'm not shocked.
And I know in some of the other cities, in Kansas City, I think they've got like some kind of a shuttle that's going to get you to the actual stadium. But for some of these other cities, they have the transit systems that are necessary for you to be able to get to these games, and they're charging crazy money for how much it's going to be to get to and from the games, and there's no other way really to get there. And they didn't know that was going to be the case until after you had purchased your tickets already to go to these games. It's nuts, man. A lot of people are very unhappy with the way that things are going with the World Cup. All right, alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, Derrick Goold, Cardinals beat writer, joins us next here on 101 ESPN.
Always love you. Oh,
Sing it, Doug. Hit the high note.
love you.
There you go. Feel it.
Willow.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Happy to go back out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, Cardinals beat writer for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Derrick Goold, joining us as he does each and every Tuesday here on BK and Ferrario. Derrick, appreciate the time as always. Good to see you out at the ballpark this weekend. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Waiting on what the forecast calls for today, and trying to steal some time to do some chores around the house. Isn't that exciting?
Yeah, it'd be nice if they're going to have to postpone this one, it'd be nice if they do so in advance of the game instead of doing the typical, hey, we're going to wait a couple hours, see if we can get this one in, and then eventually everybody goes home right around the time that it would have otherwise been finished anyway.
I was telling BK, Derrick, that when I was doing Cardinals pre and post, nothing was worse than being like, oh, you got 4 hours of rain delay theater, and then them being like, all right, hey, we're canceling the game. Be like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, they've gotten Major League Baseball and the teams have gotten much better at preemptively letting fans know since the pandemic. They learned a little bit about what they could do there and how responsive fans would be. But yeah, every team has such a different approach to this. And some of them don't hide the fact that they just want to get the sales in before they let everybody know. Just to be candid, they want to move some merchandise there and sell some concessions before making that call. This is an interesting one, though, because the weather could be bad. The Cardinals obviously got to get to San Diego tomorrow for a 4-game series there. So doubleheader isn't exactly appealing. But 5 games in 4 days later this year, summertime, when fans can come and they might sell a few more tickets, that might have an appeal too.
Yeah, no doubt. And they're in the midst of this, 17 games and 17-day stretch. The bullpen has certainly been taxed a bit over the last week or so. Maybe it's not the worst thing for them to have that day off right now as well. Derrick, I do want to look back at last night's game with you a little bit because there was an interesting decision that took place by the Brewers where they had 2 on and 1 out, and they decided to walk J.J. Weatherholtz to get to Ivan Herrera. At the time, I believe it was a 1-0 game. And they decided to make that choice. Herrera ultimately clears the bases with his double. What did you make of that in the moment? What did that say about the Cardinals lineup? What did it say about the decision? How did you interpret what took place there?
Yeah, I turned to Daniel Guerrero, my colleague there at the Post-Dispatch, who was covering the game, and I said, what do you make of this? I'm not quite sure I get it at all. Creating a force out, they must really expect Herrera to put the ball on the ground, but they are choosing to face the better hitter in this spot, which I just think was interesting. I mean, JJ's obviously an accomplished hitter, pro. He's been rolling the ball over some, get some ground outs there to that right side. But the thinking that they could put them in a spot where Herrera was the better matchup was very curious. I didn't get it at all.
Derrick, if you need to take a second. Yeah. I've been in the same boat. You are A-okay, man. We're all playing hurt around here right now.
Excuse me. I got choked up with with Murphy's decision there. Sorry. I didn't know. No. I think Herrera put it that he laughed to himself a little bit. I think there was some of that too. Is like, what do they not know about Ivan Herrera? Has word not got out that this is probably a guy you don't want to face, that this is the guy to avoid in the Cardinals lineup? I didn't really understand what the Brewers thought they were getting in that matchup other than a force out.
So let me ask about this one then, Derrick, and I'll give you a second. I can vamp a little bit while you can get that out of your system. I understand.
Yeah,
we've heard
allergies are real, man.
It's either allergies or it's, my kids are always sick, and I'm like, there's no getting through this one.
Give me 2 weeks and we'll be good to go.
Especially mine's during hockey season, and it's like in the middle of February. Like, this is a perfect time to get sick and have to deal with it right now. But Derrick, Ollie has always had that kind of piss and vinegar to his mindset to where it's like, hey, you want to challenge me, I'm going to go right back at you. And you've always wondered if the Cardinals are going to develop that mentality, that culture. And, hearing a Mason Wynn talk, and now with Ivan Herrera's quote like that yesterday, do you get the sense that that's the culture, that's the mindset, that the mentality that they're starting to develop as a team?
Boy, that's an interesting question. I kind of always thought the Cardinals were pretty feisty. I mean, you think back to a year ago in that first homestand and how they wore out the visiting pitching staff, and they just had this style. They talked about being a relentless team. I think they kind of had that in their DNA. They're just being rewarded for it now, which only then is a force multiplier. And I think we're seeing that on defense. We're seeing that on offense. You know, you get this idea that they make a play and they're like, well, I can try the next play. Oh, I stole a base. Well, I can take the next base. And I think you're starting to see an aggressiveness unite with that relentlessness because they're getting performance from it as opposed to running into brick walls or running into inconsistency or struggling like I am sometimes getting through sentences. We're struggling to get the results on that same kind of personality. I think what's happened here is they have had success. They've been rewarded for it, whether that's on an individual level or on the team level. And if you look at that, then they go, okay, they play with more confidence and they're willing to try the next thing as well. This is a team that seems very eager to push the envelope for how well it can play, as opposed to wonder why it hasn't reached the expectation of others for how well it plays.
All right, Derrick, I've got one more question for you. We'll get you out of here so you can rest that voice of yours. We'll have a more extended conversation with you next Tuesday. But
No, I'm good. I'm good. Coffee. Here we go.
Cesar Prieto getting the call up yesterday. Yeah. I find this one to be pretty interesting. Left-handed bat, has had a lot of success for them down at the minor leagues, played a lot of shortstop down there, but can play across the infield. What do you view as his role in the immediacy for the St. Louis Cardinals?
Someone who will spell them if they want to give Mason a day off. We'll see how today plays out with the weather and everything like that. But you know, Mason is due for a day off here. There's talk some of getting JJ either a day off or getting a half day where he's a DH and Urias is part of that. And maybe you see Urias at second base or Gorman, I guess, maybe at second base and Urias at third or something along those lines. I think Prieto is here as a guy who can give them depth, give them an alternate at some positions just in case. But, he's a guy who really is here so that Sajasi can play elsewhere. That's just a good way to look at it. He's a reliable guy. He had a really strong spring. Prieto did. Made improvements that were necessary to get a call like this where they could trust him at a couple of the different defensive positions. Good contact guy, hits at every level, is going to give you an at-bat from the left side that's similar to probably what Fermin will give you from the right side. So that's a likable thing off the bench as well. But, his role here is as backup and maybe somebody who can just buy somebody else a day off and do so reliably.
Derrick Goold is the Cardinals beat writer for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. You can read all of his great work over there. He did a Q&A, which is posted right now. It's very good, worth your time. We also mentioned...
I think you mean very long. It's very long.
It is also very long. I was reading it last night. I was like, man, there's a lot of questions that came in for Derrick this week.
42 of them.
It speaks to, Derrick, I'm going to ask you one more question. I apologize.
Sure.
I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Okay. So I don't know if this has been your experience as well, but we just put out the latest edition of the Redbird Report last week, and it is now the most viewed podcast that 101 ESPN has had on its YouTube page. We have social media videos that are put out, and all of it is spreading like wildfire right now. The views on YouTube right now, watching us currently, are up compared to normally at this time. My sense is... the Cardinals are getting a reaction from their fans. And yes, there are more fans in the stands than have been at times over the last couple of years as well. But typically that's a lagging indicator. Typically you see some of this stuff first and then it shows up in those numbers. Are you feeling that as well? That there is an interest level in Cardinals fans in this team that hasn't necessarily been there at times over the last couple of seasons?
Yeah, I think there's an energy about it. I'm eager to see if more interest develops or if it's just more engagement from people who were interested. For the last few years, and we've discussed it, I've written about it, it's just this team had such a hard time capturing the imagination of the fan base, whether it was just a dull atmosphere at the ballpark, a dull results, disappointing, just there was a lot of like dullness to it, and it wasn't a very the kids would say the Cardinals didn't have a whole lot of riz, man. They just didn't. They were not a very charismatic or captivating team. And, that wasn't for lack of effort. That wasn't for lack of star power. That just was maybe just a fatigue setting in for that era and for the results never matching what either the names on the back of the jersey or the names on the front of the jersey demanded. Some of the veterans who you guys have discussed and everything already today. I mean, look, big part of it was they weren't performing. They were expected to be stars and drive the team and lead the team or be the ace of the team. And in the last few years, Wilson was as close as any of them to performing like the expectation was. And so it always was, this Cardinals team is less than what they should be. That does not capture the imagination of a fan base. This team is showing that it's more than what it was expected to be. Good way to energize a fan base, good way to engage with them, good way to get them dreaming about what they could be as opposed to grumbling about what they aren't. And that, I think, is what we're seeing.
Derrick, appreciate the time, man. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you today. We'll talk with you again next week.
Thanks for going through that with me, guys. Much appreciated.
Hey, we've all been there. Yeah. Appreciate the time as always. This is Derrick Goold, Cardinals beat writer for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Find all of his great work over there. We mentioned his quotes with Mason Wynn from the other day earlier in the show. Also referenced his Q&A, which you can read over at stltoday.com. Highly recommend checking all of that out. His work is incredibly valuable if you're a Cardinals fan that's watching and following along with this team. All right, coming up next, I mentioned the interest level that is there right now for the Cardinals locally. The national media is also catching on, Alex, and there have been a lot of conversations nationally about your Cardinals. Want to let you hear a few of them next here on 101 ESPN. The national media is catching on, Alex. We are starting to see many in the national media talk about the St. Louis Cardinals, and for good reason. They've been playing some good baseball. They've been playing inspired baseball, and they have some of the best young stars in all of Major League Baseball right now. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK, and I was listening to a few different things over the last 24 hours of the national media talking about your Cardinals. I wanted to get their thoughts on where things are right now.
BK's Christmas.
I love it, man. I love getting the national perspective on our local teams. Do you guys enjoy that, or do you not care at all?
No, because half the time I feel like they're out of touch.
Yeah,
Not in this scenario.
Half the time I feel like they're just like, oh, well, they're good right now, and then you try and act like you've been watching it all season.
Yeah. Okay, touche.
So let's hear 4 clips.
Yeah, so let's go dive into it.
So first clip I want to play is from the Just Baseball podcast, which I told you guys earlier I really enjoy their podcast and then acknowledged I've never actually listened to the full podcast.
What a wild comment.
The clips they put out on social media, I've enjoyed all of them, so I think they do a pretty good job.
I love this show. I've never listened to it before, but they do a great job.
I have to imagine there are a decent number of people that listen to our show without actually listening to it by just seeing what we put on social media, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. But anyways, here's Just Baseball talking about the Cardinals.
I think it's a lot easier to enjoy it when you're watching building blocks of your franchise continue to blossom before your eyes, right? Like J.J. Weatherholt's a building block. Herrera's a building block. Walker's a building block now, been a big one. Burleson's a building block. Mason Wynn's a building block. And then even like other guys that you're like, can they turn themselves into pieces for us? Like I wouldn't call Nathan Church a building block, but he might be a complementary piece that you actually pencil into the future here. You look at Michael McGreevy, like that guy looks like an innings-eating building block for you. The relievers are different, and maybe you end up just getting a haul for Riley O'Brien, but that's great. Like, remember, they're doing this without Lars Nootbaar, who's like entered this year as their most established guy, even if he hasn't fully reached his potential. I mean, they could be really competitive as soon as next year, although they're technically competitive right now.
Uncle Ted in our YouTube chat, no one expected the Blue Jays last year. That was a 76.5 win projected team. Yeah. People forget that. And look what they did. You never know with baseball. Could the Cardinals be the shock of the season? Maybe.
I think they use the word building block a little too loose when they throw Michael McGreevy and Nathan Church in there.
I don't know. I think they're building blocks. I don't think they're like staples, but I think Church, I don't know. Church, they said, we'll see.
I think they're complementary pieces.
I think you could have Michael McGreevy in the rotation for the next 5 years and feel pretty good about that.
I think you hope you have 5 better pitchers than Michael McGreevy.
I don't. I think if Michael McGreevy is one of your top 4, you're fine.
I don't know if I'd say you want 5 better pitchers than Michael McGreevy, but I don't know that I would say like he's a building block. I think he's one of those guys that's a nice complementary piece. And then
do you think Michael McGreevy can be on a contender as a number 4 starter?
I think he can pitch for any team as a number 4 starter.
Exactly.
And the reason I bring that up is he's the kind of guy that you run through the arbitration system and then you say, thank you, sir. Go get your contract with somebody that needs an arm.
I guess we disagree on what a building block is. If you're going to be with the team for 5 years, I think that's a building block. Very few players stick with a club for 5 years.
I look at a building block and say, if this team's ready to win, is he on the team? And I don't know if he is.
Okay. I disagree. I think he is.
I'd say there's like 6 building blocks to a major league team.
And I view it as being a bigger group. That's fair. I would say those are your foundational pieces. My pillars of the organization, there are 3 to 5 of them. And that means they're going to be here for the next decade plus. That's the goal, at least. Whereas these other guys, the building blocks, they're more like, hey, they're going to be here through the ARB process, and then we'll see what the contract's status looks like. So we're all on different pages with that, but either way.
I don't know if I'd want to be a building block. That's the kind of thing that ends up like in a little kid's nose or something,
I thought the more interesting part of this, though, was...
How big are building blocks to you?
They're just those small little things?
Those are called Legos.
No.
Building blocks
the little,
are
like,
big.
wood ones?
Who's shoving those
Toronto Blue Jays as the comparison. Is that crazy to you guys?
Oh, yeah.
Well, on the offensive side, I don't think so. On the pitching side, absolutely.
Can I read you their starting rotation last year?
Sure.
Kevin Gausman, I don't think you have one of those.
No.
You guys agree?
Yeah.
Chris Bassett?
You don't got one of those.
No.
Dustin May can be Chris Bassett.
Well, Dustin may not be here.
Yeah, Dustin May's not on this team at deadline.
Maybe not, but he can be Chris Bassett.
I think he's more your Barrios.
I think in the best case scenario, yeah, he could be, but I don't think he is.
I think Barrios is your Michael McGreevy. 4.1 ERA last year, 8 innings, not striking a ton of dudes out. That's Michael McGreevy.
Am I wrong? I'll give that one to you.
I'll say you're wrong. Yeah, I'll just say it. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think you have the Bassett and Gausman. So like we can debate who the Barrios is on this roster. when you don't have the top two guys that like you would feel comfortable.
But I disagree. I reject the premise. 4.0 ERA for Dustin.
I reject the premise that we're going to go comp by comp on the Blue Jays rotation.
You're
not that good. No, I reject your premise.
Yeah.
You can't reject our premise and cut us off.
I vehemently disagree.
Yeah.
Gossman, I'm setting aside. I'm with you, T-Bone.
How about we get to the pitcher that the one we should be comping that's not on your team?
Hold on one sec, though. Bassett, 4.0 ERA in 31 starts, 170 innings. If I stripped the name from it, you guys would say that's a reasonable expectation this year out of Dustin May, right? A 4 ERA. That's not crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're in agreement there. And Barrios, a 4.1 ERA in 31 starts, 166 innings. You guys would agree that's a reasonable expectation this season out of Michael McGreevy.
Yes.
Okay. Eric Lauer. I don't know, man. I don't think Eric Lauer is that good either. So
he's your Liberator, in my opinion.
There you go. And then their other 5 and 6 starters were Max Scherzer and Bowden Francis, who had a 5.2 and a 6.0 ERA last year.
To talk about the stud that came up at the end of the season and changed their rotation.
Sure, for the playoffs. Trey Savage.
You don't have
3 starts during the regular season, and then in the postseason was awesome for them. You might have one of those. We don't know yet. Trey Savage wasn't supposed to be that either.
I don't think you have that, and I don't think you have the number 1 starting pitcher.
I don't know, for the Trey Savage one, I don't know that we'll see, because he's potentially
last
Quinn
year
Matthews.
He was not a top 100 prospect.
Yeah, that one I would give you, because I think there's a chance you could see Quinn Matthews at the end of the year if he comes up and becomes a guy.
Absolutely.
He's probably your only bet to be that guy, because Doyle probably needs more time. I don't think Bryce Abbot's got that kind of ceiling, and Sanger's not going to be ready. So it's basically, does Matthews become your Savage by the end of the year? We'll see.
And offensively, I don't think you're all that dissimilar from them.
That I agree with.
Your Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is Jordan Walker right now. Your Bo Bichette is J.J. Weatherholt right now. And George Springer is Ivan Herrera. And then you've got the complementary pieces the way that the Dodgers did last year. I don't think your lineup's all that dissimilar from what the Dodgers were. What you're missing is your Kevin Gossman. And I fold that hand. I've got nothing for you there. But beyond that, I think you're pretty similar to that.
And what was their bullpen?
Their bullpen was a little better.
That's the other thing.
Yeah, their bullpen was a little better. They did not have a great closer last season. It was Jeff Hoffman who didn't have a great ERA. Right. But, yeah, their bullpen was a little better, a little deeper than yours. That's the kind of thing, though, that you can develop over the course of the season, and they did last year. The Cardinals are going to have to continue to do that if they want to be this year's version of the Blue Jays. The thing that I would disagree with on that comparison is the Blue Jays emerged because the American League was weak. They emerged because there wasn't a Dodgers. And so what the Cardinals really need is for the Dodgers to fall apart and to not live up to expectations, and then for there to be an opening for somebody else to get to the World Series this year. And I just don't think that that's particularly likely. You want to hear from Ken Rosenthal?
Sure.
Speaking of the Cardinals and Dustin May, what do we think they're going to do at the deadline this year? Here's Ken Rosenthal on Chaim Bloom's approach.
What happens here if the Cardinals are in position at the deadline to maybe contend? Do they go forward? Do they make the same mistake the Red Sox did under Bloom and sort of abandon the plan? I would expect if they're in it, they're going to be reactive to that, and they'll make moves, modest moves perhaps, but they're not going to disrupt what they've done. If there's one lesson Bloom learned, it's to stay the course. He's going to stay the course. They're going to commit and stay committed to their young talent. It's simply a case of knowing who you are as an organization, knowing where you are, and knowing how you want to go forward.
I am fascinated by that conversation over the next few months. Now, hopefully we get to have it. I would love nothing more than for the Cardinals to be in it by the time they get to the trade deadline, and this becomes a real conversation for us, because right now it's all theoretical. What would you do in the scenario where you're still good and other teams are interested in Dustin May, other teams are interested in Riley O'Brien and JoJo Romero, or you could go out there and you could trade yourself for other assets that become available to bolster your team. I'm fascinated by the conversation. I hope we get to have it. I think the one that's going to be hardest for them is with JoJo, because Dustin May, I have no idea what the value is going to be out there for other teams. I don't know. I don't think that you feel rushed to move Riley O'Brien if you're really in it, because he's got so much control left. You could make that move in the offseason or next year at the deadline if you needed to. So you don't feel the need to do it here and now. The ones that'll be that way are JoJo and potentially Lars Nootbaar. Beyond that, though, I don't know that there's going to be huge decisions that have to be made. And them giving up a lottery ticket prospect, whatever, that's fine. I don't think they're going to be opposed to doing that.
Yeah, I don't care. If you're going to give up something that's not a part of this future moving forward, then, make yourself better for the now if you're sitting in a chase for the NL Central crown. Like, you absolutely do that. I just view it as stick to the plan like Rosenthal does, to where if you want to buy and not give up much, that's fine. Don't give up anything massive to go make some big swing that makes you a contender right now. But on top of that, I think you have to look and be realistic that if there are teams calling for pieces that you can move and it not hurt your plans, you have to listen to it, because the goal this season is to accumulate as many minor league guys and options as possible so that you can find the right pieces for your team.
If you're good, somebody's giving you a really good offer for JoJo, and you're good, and if we trade JoJo, we don't really have an internal replacement for him.
You got Justin Brule, man.
How are you feeling about that kind of a move?
I'm doing it.
You are?
If somebody's giving me a real offer, I'm not diverting from the plan. I am making sure I'm getting the most assets as possible.
I think if you're like first in the division, I think I'm holding on to JoJo. I don't see the path to sell. And like, I get it. Like, ideally you get a pretty good return for JoJo. I mean, that's a lottery ticket, right? And you're losing him in the offseason. Maybe you just re-sign JoJo Romero. I don't think he'd cost you a ton to go out there and re-sign and bring him back to your bullpen. I think it's worth it to try and push this team to the playoffs. And when I say push, just keeping the band together, and maybe you add on the margins, right, to see if you can get into playoffs. Because for all you know, you could be the 2023 Diamondbacks. And I'm not saying you get to a World Series, but look at the Diamondbacks. Look at the Rangers from that year, honestly. Those two teams haven't gotten back to the postseason since they went on those runs. So do I really just want to kind of wave the white flag and move on from one of my best pieces? I don't think so. And I don't think ownership would either. That's the group. I said this on the Redbird Report in the last episode. I find it fascinating. Not so much what Heim wants to do at the deadline. I think Heim's willing to stick to his plan. But if Rosenthal didn't say it in that cut, but he mentioned it in his piece today on The Athletic, it wasn't Heim that got away from that plan in Boston. It was ownership. Ownership said, hey, we're getting a little impatient here. We want to start pushing again. And Heim was like, well, wait a minute. We're not ready to start pushing. Like, yeah, we don't care. Let's go. And then that's when it went awry. Are we really going to think the DeWitts are going to say playoff money? Nah, we don't want it. Go ahead. Just sell off all these assets. We don't care. Go ahead. Do it.
Here's MLB Network earlier today talking about the Cardinals offense.
They hit you with some excitement. The Burlesons, the Mason Winds, the Victor Scotts of the world, okay? Then Jordan Walker has been a revelation the first part of this season. For me, the biggest one, though, is J.J. Weatherholt's a stud. You see it in his eyes. He's been leading off for them. He walks to the plate. This is his first month, 6 weeks in the big leagues. He gets up there. He's hammers gum.
Hammers gum.
Hammers it. You miss over the heart of the plate, I'm going to hit a missile up the middle.
J.J. Weatherholt right now is on pace for 25 doubles, 30 homers, 80 ribbies. Can you believe that? This kid is 23 years old. He's been up at the big league level for 5 weeks, and that's what he's on pace for.
I thought he'd have more doubles projections at that point.
And I think he will eventually. Yeah. I think that's going to come over time. I think the home runs will start to drop off a little bit. The doubles will start to increase, and he's getting on base right now 36% of the time. Just an absolutely ridiculous start to the season for J.J. Weatherholt. Which start to the season surprises you more, Weatherholt or Walker?
Walker. I thought Walker was done.
I'm with you.
I thought he was over. I thought it was, this guy's going to just make his way for the next few years and then be gone. So I thought Weatherholt was going to be good. The attitude was like, yeah, this guy's going to be able to handle Major League Baseball. I just didn't know if it was going to come right away. Walker, I did not expect this at all.
I thought Weatherholt could be 80% of what Brendan Donovan was. He's been 100% of what Donnie was. So that surprises me. I thought Walker we all thought he might lose his job by the time that we got to like May or June, when Lars Nootbaar could potentially return. And now he is one of the most locked in pieces in your lineup right now. Like, it might be him, then Weatherholt, then like Herrera / Burleson in that order. So yeah, that's the one that surprises me a little bit more.
Yeah, it's Walker for me as well. I mean, for Weatherholt, I thought he would either be 80% Donovan. I thought he's going to be about league average this year, right? I said it all the time. You see some stars struggle their first years as rookies, so I thought he'd have some growing pains. I was wrong. He doesn't have any growing pains, apparently. Walker, who you said this earlier, and I would reference it all the time. There weren't guys that would go 2 years where their OPS plus was below 72 and just suddenly figure it out. Typically, that was the sign of, okay, this guy's not a big leaguer. It's just a matter of not if, but when he's out of the big leagues. And he's had almost a 400-point jump in his OPS. That's absurd. So he is by far the biggest surprise for me.
Somebody on the text line said, how many runs is J.J. Weatherholt on pace for this season? The answer is 130. Jeez. Is how many runs he's on pace for. Last Cardinal to score 130 runs in the season. Any guesses, boys?
I would think Albert, but if it's not him, I don't know who it would have been.
Alex, any guesses?
Trying to think of leadoff hitters. Yeah, no, you know what? I'm going to say Carlos Beltran.
There have been 2 to do this in the last 70 years for the St. Louis Cardinals. 2 players score 130 or more runs in a season. Albert Pujols, Stan was more than 70 years ago. He was the one to do it, though, 80 years ago.
I wasn't sure if
1948. Albert did it in 03 and in 04. Mark McGwire in 98 scored 130 runs on the dot. The entire list of Cardinals players to do this in the last 100 years. Joe Ducky Medwick, Rogers Hornsby did it 3 different times. Stan Musial, Mark McGwire, Albert Pujols. Pretty good company if you are J.J. Weatherholt. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, Better to Forget It here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a SportsCenter update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals took down the Brewers yesterday 6-3. Game 2 of their 3-game set is supposed to be tonight, weather permitting. 6:45 first pitch. Andre Palante will be on the mound for St. Louis. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, you can hear Game 3 of the Thunderbirds playoff series against the Providence Bruins, where they are tied at 1 game apiece. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 5:50 with puck drop at 6:05. The SportsCenter update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Three. People can't hear BK.
Mic check 1 2. Mic check. There we are. 314-399-9646 is the Your Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It here on 101.
Eric's starting to learn on the job quick. Eric, I'll Venmo you that $5 for keeping his mic off there. Appreciate you, man.
All right, let's get into it. Bet It or Forget It here on 101 ESPN. Eric, if you want to take that bet down just a little bit, you are absolutely crushing it, my man.
Got to hear his voice.
That's right. Bet it or forget it. The Cardinals will have 2 players hit at least 30 home runs this year.
I'll bet it. I think there's 4 guys that could potentially get there. So 2, I'll say bet it.
Forget it.
I would forget it, too.
I think they get 1.
For how
Walker.
optimistic
I think
you
Walker's
guys are.
getting there. Walker's
you
at
just
10.
said Weatherholt's on pace for 30.
130.
No, you said 30 home runs and 25 doubles.
He is on pace for 32 home runs. I do not think he will stay on that pace.
I agree.
I don't think he's going to stay on the pace for 130 runs either, to be fair.
Well, considering he was with like 5 other Hall of Famers, I'd say no.
Yeah, I don't think you're seeing Weatherholt, and if it's not Weatherholt, then you have to ask on Burleson or Gorman would be the other guy that I would pin on. Like, you hope he could get there. I think as we've seen this year, I just don't know that he's going to be able to go on that big, hot toward stretch that could help get him there. So I don't think Burley, Herrera, or Weatherholt's going to do it.
By the way, I didn't mention this. Walker also on pace for 130 runs this year.
We have 2 Hall of Famers in our lineup?
Show the statues
no
now.
wonder why it feels different this year.
Alex? You don't have one, do you?
No, I do. I was going to say, guys, bet it or forget it. The Blues don't give 1 contract extension this offseason.
Forget it.
Forget it. We did Holloway already.
You're saying from here on out.
Beyond Holloway, you little loophole.
I would be pretty surprised if they don't extend Hofer.
I would too, man. That's the one that's like, I feel like it's just get it done so you know how much he is.
Exactly.
And you know that's the only guy you have right now.
Yeah, I would forget it. I think they get Hofer done this offseason. I brought this up. I don't think we ever talked about it, but it was on a day where BK was out. I looked into what would Bennington's contract comp be to him when he signed that extension, and it was like, I don't remember what the percentage of the cap was, but it was basically the new version of a Bennington deal would be 6 years at $7 million AAV. I could see where that ends up being, or $7.5 million maybe is what it was.
I was about to say it'd have to be more than that.
Yeah, I was saying if
I think it's closer to 8.
But if Hofer,
it was just below 8, 7.5, 7.75, something like that. And I think they're going to look to do something similar to that kind of deal.
I think Hofer's pace continues. If he's on, the guy's got top goalie in terms of numbers and shutouts in the league. That guy could get paid in this cap era more than 9 if you wait a couple of years.
Guys, bet it or forget it. The Dodgers will not have the best record in the National League this year.
I'm going to say forget that.
Right now, the Braves have the best record in the NL at 25-11. The Cubs are slightly
I'll say
ahead.
not, because I think this is the worst version of the Dodgers you'll see this year.
Agreed.
I think they get better before they get worse. So the fact that right now they're a plus 68 in their run differential, and they have had half of their starting rotation on the injured list, and they're one of their best players is missing time right now, I'll say forget it. I think they end up as the best team in the NL.
I would say they don't. The reason I say that is because they're going to load manage this whole year.
Who's going to take it?
I think it might be the Cubs.
Okay.
I think that, you look at their lineup. Their lineup is great, 1 through 9, and then their pitching is going to get a little bit healthier in the bullpen. I like their rotation so far this year. I think it's probably going to be them. Braves are dealing with injuries. Otherwise, I would say it could be them. But the reason I say it's not going to be the Dodgers, they're going to load manage for this, right? Glasnow's healthy now. I'll bet you $100 that guy ends up on the IL with something. Probably the old classic shoulder impingement, and he misses some time. They do this all the time to where they're not going to be healthy all year. At some point, it's going to cost them a couple games, and they won't finish best record.
From the 314, better to forget it. Dvorsky will move to the wing permanently at some point next year.
Forget it. They've got zero, unless they go out there and trade for Matty Beniers and draft Caleb Malhotra. That's your second line center for moving forward.
Agreed.
Yeah, forget it. They're going to go as long as they can. He's still very young, so they're going to give him time.
From the 731, better to forget it. Jimmy Crooks could be a trade chip that the Cardinals use to bolster their team if they are in contention. That's an interesting one.
I bet it. You got all these catchers. Well, either him or Bernal, I would say, could be that trade candidate for you.
I don't think that is something they do at the deadline. I do think that'll probably be in play in the offseason, though.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Deadline doesn't feel like they're going to do anything that's going to be super, because like Crooks would carry some decent value to get you something important, but I don't know that they want to spend that in season.
From the 314, better to forget it, the Cardinals are more likely to have to make the playoffs this year than to have a losing record. I'll say forget it. I think they're more likely to go like 80-82 than they are to make the postseason. That is not me saying they suck.
No,
just to be clear.
I think the shoe will drop at some point. Like, you're not going to be this perfect all season long. So you're going to have a month that's under 500, and you'll come back down to earth. And just like we talked with Jordan Walker, when you go into a slump, how do you pull yourself out of it? So, yeah, I'm going to say forget it. I think you probably finish a couple games below 500 rather than be in the playoffs, a certain thing.
Big part of it, too, is injuries. Like, at some point, you're going to hit injuries, and we don't know how that's going to impact this season.
Yeah, and we don't. I don't know about you guys. I don't know how you feel about their depth, but at least the pitching, it's not great. And I don't know that it's very good on the position player side either. So, yeah, I would forget this as well. Odds are they end up a losing record.
Can I throw another one in real quick?
Please,
I just saw Jeff Merrick quote tweet this from the OHL Brantford Bulldogs that got eliminated last night. Jay McKee was talking, and Jeff Merrick said Jay McKee is going to be on a bench possibly as soon as this season. Better to forget it. Jay McKee is one of the Blues assistant coaches this season.
Sure.
Guy's been in the OHL for 10 years. He's won a championship. He's the coach of Adam Jiricek. Jiricek may be on the team, defensive-minded coach.
I'm here for it.
I kind of wonder if this is one of the guys that they're looking at.
That makes sense.
Jay McKee was a really good penalty killer in his time in the National Hockey League. He played like 12 seasons, played a few seasons for the Blues. This might be one of those guys. So I'm gonna bet this one.
I would bet it as well. I mean, it makes sense what you're talking about. A penalty kill, which is going to be the big focal point for him, is someone to help special teams. I could see where this one makes sense. As you said, Jiricek's coach. Also Coach McDavid, right? Wasn't that who we had on?
Yeah.
So
I mean, he's worked with young
Coach
kids
McDavid,
for 10 years.
Coach somebody to be that, right?
Yeah, you could turn Dalibor Dvorsky into Connor McDavid.
Or Gavin McKenna.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Ivar Stenberg. And by the way, Montgomery played in the NHL same time that Jay McKee played in the NHL.
Probably some kind of a relationship there. All right. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Shout out to Eric, who did a fantastic job for us on the board in that segment. Coming up next, we'll hit the rewind here on BK and Ferrario. Hey, it's BK, and it is time for you to unlock your inner champion. This means different things for everybody. For some, it means losing some of that unwanted weight. For others, it means, man, you just haven't been feeling like yourself. You're not getting the same out of your workouts as you once did. You don't have that energy that you used to. You're chasing around the kiddos at home, and you feel down and tired and groggy whenever you're done. Well, if that's you, you could go to Victory Men's Health and you can unlock that inner champion once again. Check them out online, victorymenshealth.com. When you get there, you can see all that they have to offer. And booking your first appointment is an incredibly easy process. Book online at victorymenshealth.com. When you get there, click Get Started, put in your name, email, phone number, tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you, and then you can tell them what it means for you to unlock your inner champion. You'll go there for that first appointment. It'll be a consultation with a licensed medical provider. They'll do some lab work, and then you'll go back for a follow-up appointment, and you'll be able to find out exactly where all your levels are at, and that is when you can truly put together that personalized plan to unlock your inner champion. Do it today at Victory Men's Health and online at victorymenshealth.com. Hey, if you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
Had great conversations today with Derrick Goold, Katie Wu, and Jeremy Rutherford. The Blues will find out their fortunes tonight for the NHL Draft Lottery, Alex. They currently have odds at the 11th overall pick and the 15th overall selection. How you feeling going into this one, big guy?
Very optimistic because the lottery is rigged. Steen takes over for Doug Armstrong, so the NHL said, we'll give him the second overall pick, and Ivar Stenberg will be a Blue.
If I told you St. Louis is not winning the lottery.
I just told you they were, man.
But
I just assumed it didn't happen.
But you're a true believer that the lottery is rigged.
Yeah.
And that they do this for specific reasons. Who's the team that would make the most sense to rig the lottery for this offseason? Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Because if they don't win the lottery, they're going to be moved out of the lottery, and then they lose their pick. They lose Austin Matthews, and Bettman's like, what? Somebody in the Canadian market is going to win this lottery, whether it's Vancouver, which is the obvious one because of all of the odds. But I'd say if it's rigged, the Toronto Maple Leafs will be a first overall pick.
Is there anybody that could win it this year that you would say to yourself, all right, it's clearly not rigged. They did not want this to happen.
Yeah, the Winnipeg Jets or the Florida Panthers.
I was going to say Florida was the one that I thought
You're
of.
like, oh, come on. Yeah, Winnipeg would be another one, too, that it's like they don't even like the market in Winnipeg right now, so they don't want that team to win the lottery. That would be the one where it's like, all right, we get it.
San Jose would be interesting.
That'd be a good
Celebrini. Celebrini gets some help.
I mean, like, they're they're falling in the same category as the Blackhawks, though, to where it's like, okay, enough with all of these picks.
The difference, though, is
they're starting to win versus Chicago. Chicago's the one that it's just like, it feels a lot like what the Arizona Coyotes were for the longest time, or Buffalo, where it's like, enough with this already. Like, either ish or get off the pot if you're going to keep accumulating these guys and not turn them into anything.
Cardinals potentially play tonight, 6:45 first pitch, if they're able to get this thing in with the weather that's potentially coming through tonight. Brandon Sproat on the mound for the Milwaukee Brewers. If you're unfamiliar with his work, he is super average. This is a game that you could legitimately make the case the Cardinals have a decided pitching advantage going in. How you guys feeling going into tonight if this game is played?
I think they win this one. Everything about this Cardinals team right now is just finding ways to battle through. And like you said, if you're going up against just a pure average pitcher, the Cardinals seem to demolish these guys. So this is going to be another series win for me.
Give me the Cardinals win 6-4 tonight against the Brewers if the game is played.
Yeah, I'll say Cardinals win. I'll go a little bit lower scoring. I'll say it's 5-1 in favor of Cardinals.
He's T-Bone. That's Alex. I'm BK. Shout out to Eric, who did a fantastic job for us on the board the last couple of segments. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane is next here on 101 ESPN.